got Robert from California, not to be confused with the famous Robert California, says has questions for atheists and wants to give his testimony through conversation. Well, what could go wrong with a good testimony? Robert, welcome to the Atheist Experience. Can you hear us?
I can hear you guys just fine. How you guys doing this afternoon?
Can't complain. How are you?
Absolutely wonderful. So why do we care about your testimony? Because anecdotal evidence is just that, anecdotal, and that's all your testimony is anecdotal.
Okay. Well, I could gently throw it back at you, but we're not going to get into I don't want to go in circles. I could say the same thing about your evolution. You guys can talk about all your...
Well, that's a load of bullshit.
Razor.
No, so in order to deny evolution, you have to deny genes exist, because the definition of evolution is a change in allele frequency over time in population. So when you deny evolution, are you denying that genes exist?
I believe that Jesus created God. I believe that God created...
That's not an answer to the question. Can you answer the question?
Repeat that, please.
Can you answer the question? Do genes exist?
Genes do exist, and guess what? God created the genes.
And guess what? That proves evolution. Thank you very much. You can't deny evolution, nor can you say it's just anecdotal. So what were you saying about your anecdotal stuff there you were trying to preach, and we're just not going to allow it? So
you don't have to. I'd really like to give my testimony, so let's do that. But I first have a first.
That's preaching. Why should I take your testimony as anything but anecdotal evidence?
You guys talk about anecdotal evidence. Your evolutionist theory is garbage unless...
You just admitted that evolution is true when you admitted genes exist. So stay off the evolution stuff, because you've already been proven wrong. Or you have to deny genes exist.
That's not true.
Yeah, it is. Because what's the definition of evolution?
Genes, absolutely. And who created the genes, fellas? God. And just like we're going to talk about evolution. Hold on. If we're going to talk about evolution.
No, we're going to talk about evolution, and we're going to talk about, since you admit that genes exist, then you admit that evolution exists. Because the definition of evolution is the change in allele frequency over time in a population. So you have admitted, if you admit genes exist, you admit that evolution exists. And that's not anecdotal evidence. That's backed up by the best science we have.
And so does the
Bible. So again, why should I take your anecdote of your testimony as true?
Because the Bible says it. 100%.
The Bible says it's true, and your testimony says it's true, and around we go. The wheels of the argument, keep on turning. So what?
Okay.
Try again.
Well, here's the point. Here's the point on this.
Well, so Robert, we actually would be interested to talk about the Bible or your religion and whatnot. I think these would be fruitful conversations. I don't know if your story is all that helpful, because we hear stories from Muslims and other religions too, right?
Sure.
But if you've got an argument that is a logical argument or an evidence-based argument from the Bible, we'd definitely be down for that.
Okay, so thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. So here's where we start. I've been a Christian for 35 years. Okay, what happened to me is I was born totally blind, so I have no sight. I was born premature. I'm going to show you guys how God walked with me through my life. I was born premature. I was born in 7 months instead of 9 months. I died twice. The doctors brought me back. By the grace of God.
And you didn't die?
In an incubator for 2. No, by the grace of God, I didn't die, sir.
Yeah, no. So my girlfriend's an ICU nurse, and if the doctors can bring you back, you are not dead.
Well, and guess what? If who made the doctors bring me back, Jim? That's what I like to know.
Science.
Just by its own. God created science.
Oh, okay. Evolution has nothing to do with bringing people back. Good medical science and good medical technology does.
Okay. Well, I hope you don't cut me off again. I don't cut you off. I hope you respect what I have to say. So anyway, like I was saying, so I was born premature. I was born in 7 instead of 9. I died twice. I came back. I grew up in a New Age religion. My father happened to be a famous entertainer. I was born in Beverly Hills with a silver spoon in my mouth, yada, yada, yada. So, he brought me into the New Age religion, okay, when I was 6 years old. So, God, there's no such thing as God. God is within you. Heaven, there's no such thing as heaven or hell. Heaven is on earth. Satan doesn't exist. So I grew up, believing this garbage. So when I turned back in 1987, I was 19, and my friends kept telling me, you need to accept Jesus Christ into your life. And I kept denying it. I'm like, man, I'm a New Ager, and all that kind of bullshit. So what ends up happening is I start having these crazy dreams when I was 20, back in 1988. I started dreaming that I was in this tunnel.
Robert, I don't want to interrupt you because you sound like a nice guy, but the problem is, like, your personal experience is never going to be evidence for us. Like, this is just a story. That's why we were looking for something more concrete, like something verifiable in science or the Bible, or maybe even a logical argument. Like, maybe you gave us a logical argument and the only conclusion could be that God existed.
Okay. So here's my point. All right. So like I told you about the light, before I was saved, this light would burn me on the back of the right hand. Okay. It kept burning me until 1990, June 19th of 1990, I got saved. So now here's where the Bible quote comes in. This light burned me on the back of my right hand. What does it say in Revelation 13? Verse.
Oh no!
What does it say?
Oh, don't do that. Oh, Robert, you didn't call in. You didn't call in and get cooked on the mark of the beast in Revelation 13, did you?
Well. Now, if the light burned me on the back of the right hand, what do you guys think that is? God was trying to let me know Satan is burning you on the back of the right hand. You better get right before you burn.
I certainly don't think so. The mark of the beast is obviously a reference to Nero. It has nothing to do with anything burning your hand. Also, it's quite true that the mark of the beast is not supposed to be something physical that's on your hand or your forehead. It's a reference to the practice that the ancient Jews had, where they would bind the Torah, the law, to their hand or to their forehead. It comes up again in the next section. If you keep reading in the chapter 14, it comes up again. It's certainly clear that it's not referring to like a literal mark that people are going to get on their body. It's about pledging allegiance to the enemy, to Babylon, to Nero.
Okay. Well, guys, we can agree to disagree. If you guys look at what's going on, the world's starting to go digital. The Bible said that the world was going to start digital, that we were going to live in a cashless society. And you guys know.
It didn't say that. It didn't say we're going to live in a cashless society.
Hey. No, we're going to. No, wait a minute. We're headed toward a cashless.
Quote me the passage.
You guys say that, and
quote me the passage where it says we're going to have a cashless society.
Oh, read it in Revelation, Justin. Read it in Revelation.
I have read Revelation. I've read every last word of the Bible. That's why I'm asking you to quote it, because I know it's not in there.
Oh, it's in there. It's in Revelation. You'll find it right there.
Then give me the verse. Where do you think it exists in Revelation? Because it's not in there.
To be honest with you, I've read it. I don't know which chapter it is in, but I know if you read Revelation, you will find it. Also, when I got saved, when I got saved, a gentle light sealed me in the forehead. Now, if you read Revelation,
what's your evidence for this?
Chapter 7.
Well, what's your evidence for this? What's the evidence for your hand burning?
Because, when I got burned on the back of the right hand, I heard a voice tell me, you need to come into the family of God. You need to.
Did you have to take a picture of that by any way? The burn on your hand, did you have it checked out by a medical doctor?
Jim, it was in a dream. It was spiritual. This is why you.
Oh, it wasn't your real right hand. You were just in a dream. You were just in a dream. Is that correct? It wasn't your real right hand. It was just in a dream.
It was my right hand. When it burned.
Then did you take your right hand, you and your right hand go to a doctor to find out what the burn was?
There's no need to do that, sir. The Bible already showed me what the burn was. And I'm going to say this to you.
Oh, so you don't know what caused the burn. Got it.
I know exactly what caused the burn. It was Satan. And God told me you need to come.
But you haven't proved that Satan or God exists yet, so why should I believe either?
Because the Bible says so. And if you guys...
So God says the Bible is true, the Bible says the God is true, and the wheels on the argument turn round and round, the wheels on the argument turn round and round. Circular argument, don't care, not a good argument, give me something better.
Evolution is nothing. You guys go on your Occam.
We're not talking about evolution. I've already destroyed you on that because you admit that genes exist. And as long as genes exist, evolution is true. You can't get around that. And I know that your high school education hasn't prepared you. If you remember your high school biology education hasn't prepared you for that particular argument. But that is the fact. So get off of that. Give me evidence for God.
I already did. And I'll tell you what.
No, you didn't. You've made claims about God. You haven't actually, that God can do something. Before you can say that somebody did something, you first need to prove that that somebody exists. And you haven't done that.
I just did. Well, because you guys are close.
Okay, do it. Say it again. Let's try it again. Say it again.
Let's try this again. Absolutely. When I first got saved, like I said, I was in the new age. Okay, God started showing me through my friends, through people. Then after that, I started.
How do you know it was God?
That's all.
How do you know it was God?
Because I heard you didn't hear me before, did you, Jim? I said God. When I got burned, God told me you need to accept.
How do you know it was God?
The family of Jesus Christ. Because
how do you know it was God?
The Bible said it. Revelation 13, verse 16, sir. Open your eyes. I happen to be.
That does not refer to your burned hand. Right? You now need to, well, first, you need to prove that it refers to your burned hand and not to Nero, as Justin, who's actually a biblical scholar, and you're not, has said that it's about Nero. But now you need to prove that your mark on your hand is the mark of the beast. Can you do that?
Well, you know, yeah, it would be the future if I would have not accepted Jesus Christ into my life. I would have received the mark of the beast, just like you guys are going to receive. You guys better be.
So how do you? But again, you haven't proven any of this. You're just making claims. So you need to prove that God and Satan exist and that this mark of the beast is a real thing. And you haven't done any of that. You're just making claims. No, you didn't. You made a claim.
Yes, I did, Jim. Okay.
No, you made a claim about God existing and God doing something and God talking to you. You haven't proved that God talks to you because you haven't proven God exists.
You know what we're going to do? We're going to keep going in circles. If I could just last comment, and I'll let you guys.
I think we can have a better productive conversation on a slightly different topic, right? Because like personal experience is something you can never prove. It's only meaningful to you. It's not meaningful to us. But like, I suspect that like the reason why your personal experience is so meaningful is because you think the Bible is true already. So let me ask you a question. Like, what percentage of the Bible is true?
100%. 100%.
Sure.
100%.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you have a Bible with you? You want to read it with me?
I don't, to be honest with you, my Bible, I have two different Bibles because Braille, the cells are huge. So it's just,
I can read it for you. I've got it. So
go ahead.
John 3:13, Jesus says, "No one has ascended into heaven except the one who descended from heaven, the Son of Man." Is that a true statement?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
So no man ascended into heaven other than Jesus?
Paul ascended into heaven later, after Jesus did, but no,
before Jesus.
Heaven before. You know what happened before Jesus?
Have you
everybody
read Second Kings? Because in Second Kings it says that Elijah ascended into heaven in a whirlwind. Second Kings 2:11 says Elijah ascended into heaven.
Okay, but he didn't die. He didn't die, and not only that,
no one said anything about death.
For the Old Testament saints, they went into Abraham's bosom, which means that they went into a different compartment of hell.
It says heaven.
Read that.
There's no Abraham's bosom in the Old Testament. So to be clear, 2 Kings 2:11 says that he went in a whirlwind into heaven. The Hebrew word for heaven is hashemayim, and it just means the sky. That's the abode of God in the Hebrew Bible. It's the same place, in fact, where Jesus says no man has gone in John 3:13, but it uses the Greek counterpart to that.
Okay. All right. Well, you know,
So
I think
somebody certainly did go to heaven.
Either he went to heaven or he went to the lower depths of heaven, you know, before Jesus died. After Jesus died on the cross, he took all the saints to heaven, to where God is. And so that's
Where's that in the Bible?
he died. So yes. Oh, it says it in Luke. It says it in Luke and John. It says it in Luke and John. He took all the saints to heaven. He left heaven.
All the dead are in the skies now.
He took the keys from Satan and the devil. He took the keys from Satan and all the demons, and he took the people that were in Abraham's bosom and ascended into heaven. But here's my point. I'm going to say this.
That's weird because he gave the keys of the kingdom to the disciples already in Matthew 16.
He sure did. He sure did.
How many keys are there? He's just giving these keys out all willy-nilly, isn't he?
Oh man, he gave me keys. He gave me keys, and I can tell you all sorts of experiences that I've had. We're not going to go into that because
I'm sure he did. So like, why would we believe any of this nonsense about Jesus? Like, Jesus has demonstrated over again in the Bible that he doesn't actually know what's in his own religion. He doesn't even know how to read Hebrew. The guy goofs it. He reads from the Greek text all the time and doesn't even understand what the Greek text is talking about.
Well,
he's a goof, man.
Agree to disagree. We can agree.
Well, I can
but if
I could demonstrate it for you. Well, I'll demonstrate it. I'll just let you see for yourself what I'm actually talking about. Matthew does it a lot too, but like, I'm going to take you to a passage real quick in Isaiah, if you don't mind. Have you read Isaiah 61 before?
I have not.
Okay. You'll recognize it when I read it to you. Verse 1 says, "The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me. He has sent me to bring good news to the oppressed, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and release to the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, and to comfort all who mourn, and to provide for those who mourn in Zion," so on and so forth. So on face value, this is a pretty open-ended passage. It's hard to know what he's talking about until you get to verse 4, then it's actually abundantly clear. It says, "They will build up the ancient ruins. They shall raise up the former devastations. They shall repair the ruined cities, the devastations of many generations. Strangers will stand and feed your flocks, and foreigners will till your land and dress your vines." So the passage in Isaiah 61 is a restoration prophecy after the Babylonian exile, which is what Deutero and Trito Isaiah are referring to. This is the latter part of Isaiah, so it's Trito Isaiah. This is referring to the restoration of the people after they come back from the exile, is it not?
Oh, sure. Yes. Okay.
Sure. I mean, it's pretty clear, right? It's just a message to the exiles for those mourning that are left in Zion, saying, hey, it's okay. You can be happy now. You're coming back from exile. Your lands are going to be rebuilt. The cities that have been destroyed, it's okay. They're going to be rebuilt. Now, the problem with this is if you go to Luke 4, down to verse 17, it says, "The scroll of the prophet Isaiah was given to Jesus. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it was written, 'The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives, recovery of sight to the blind,'" that's not in the Hebrew text, "and to set free those who are oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." He rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. The eyes of all the synagogue were fixed on him. Then he began to say to them, "Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." But that scripture absolutely was not fulfilled in their hearing, because Israel wasn't restored. Their cities weren't rebuilt. And shortly after this, they were devastated by the Romans.
Well, let me ask you a question, Justin. Where is Israel now? Israel is flourishing. Israel is doing fantastic. And
well, no, thanks to Jesus.
In closing, well, Jesus made,
and there's no king in Israel either. Just to point that out, there's no king in Israel.
There's no king in Israel, but the Antichrist is coming soon, guys. And whether you guys,
I'm sure he is.
You Christians have been saying that for the last 2,000 years, and so far he hasn't shown up.
Well, like Peter said, beware of the scoffers, because they will say, our fathers haven't seen Jesus, we haven't seen Jesus, and Jesus is going to appear like a thief in the night. So I would simply say...
So Peter said that? Peter said that?
Peter said that.
Didn't Peter see Jesus? So why would he say, I haven't seen Jesus? That makes no sense.
He didn't say he hasn't seen Jesus. That's not what he said. He hasn't seen Jesus. Justin, I'm gonna make a
When did Jesus say he was coming back? Because he tells you on a couple occasions when he's coming back.
No. He nobody knows the hour or the time when he's coming.
I didn't say the hour, but he gave you a cutoff. Have you read Matthew 16?
Okay, and that's supposed to apply.
I'll show you. Yeah, it says the Son of Man is to come with his angels in the glory of his Father. Then he will repay everybody for their deeds. Truly, I tell you, there are some standing here who will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. And all those people standing there with Jesus are dead. He did not, in fact, come on the clouds with all the angels to repay everybody for their deeds.
But that's where you're wrong. Okay, maybe he didn't have the angels come on with the Mount of Angels, but John saw him in Revelation.
That's what he said.
All the other disciples were martyred. Okay, so John got a chance.
What's your evidence for that?
Why? Because in the Bible,
well,
I go right back.
The Bible doesn't mention the deaths of.
Like you guys go to your side.
Let's not get distracted on the martyrdom just yet. I mean, that's a good topic, but let's finish Matthew 16. So in Matthew 16, it says that he's going to do it. He doesn't say that someone's going to get a vision of it. He says the Son of Man is to come. That means he's coming. Doesn't mean you're going to see a dream of me coming. He says the Son of Man is to come with his angels in the glory. And he says some of you are standing here will not taste death before that happens. And to be sure, some is not one person. Some is always more than one.
Oh, the sum? Is that what you're saying? Like SOM? Is that what you're saying?
Or the word some is always more than one, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I get that. All right, I understand that. Well, again, I go right back to Revelation, and when Jesus does come back, he is coming back with his angels. We just don't know when.
So you admit he did not come back before any of his disciples died, despite him saying he would.
He came back when he rose from the dead while his disciples were still alive. And then when he left, the angels said he will come again. So yes,
no.
Jesus appeared to over 500.
So that's not the sequence. He told them that he would come back after he had died. So this is after he supposedly resurrected. He told them that he would come back before any of his disciples died.
Yes.
That's the sequence.
He came back, and he did.
No, he did not come back a third time. He has not come back a third time. That's what he's talking about.
He's going to come back the third time. He's going to come back. We don't know when. And I would make a suggestion to both of you.
You really don't listen very well.
Jim,
you don't listen very well. So again, so just be quiet for a second and listen. After he resurrected, he told his disciples that before they died, he would come back. That's the sequence you're missing. This isn't before he died the first time. This is after he resurrected. So he did not come back before any of his disciples died.
No, he came back. He came back after his resurrection, and that's where you guys miss it.
You didn't listen.
When he came
again,
back,
you didn't listen. You did not listen. He died. He came back. He told his disciples that he will come back again for a third time before his disciples died.
Okay. Well, we're his modern day disciples. We are his modern day disciples. So therefore, he is coming.
Wow, you're just making excuses that what he said is not true.
Hey, Jim, you keep on driving your off-race driving Jeeps, and I'll see you both at the Great White Throne Judgment when you burn in hell. And for all of you theists,
there it is. That's all they've got. That's all they've got is a threat.
Yep, that's all they got is a threat when they're done. Yeah. You know the Christian is done with everything when they start threatening you with hell.
Hey, Robert, are you afraid of Muslim hell?
It's the truth.
Robert, are you afraid of Muslim hell?
Muslims are going to hell. All Muslims.
No, that wasn't my question. My question is, are you afraid of the Muslim hell?
I'm not afraid of the Muslim hell because there is no
Right.
Muslim.
And why?
Hell is hell.
There you go. And we're not afraid of Christian hell because there is no Christian hell. So like you threatening us with hell is
Problem.
the most meaningless statement that could have ever been uttered.
Okay. Well, Justin, I'm going to say this. You go back to, I remember you made a comment a couple of weeks ago about comparing the Bible and contradictions. And you made a point to a gentleman that we're going to pick up a cup of tea one day and we're going to say, you know, maybe there are some contradictions in the Bible, yada, yada, shmada. I would suggest to both of you, you guys are going to be on your deathbeds one day. Okay. And
well, didn't we
I'm
just
not worried
prove that
about
there?
that.
Yeah. Didn't we in fact prove there's a contradiction in the Bible?
Actually, so
Justin proved it twice.
No, you didn't. No, you did not.
Let's do this because Robert really wants to preach. So Robert, here's what we'll do. I know there's like we've interrupted you a lot and you really want to get some things out. So I'm going to give you we got to move on, but I'm going to give you the next minute to say anything you want completely uninterrupted, and I promise I won't interrupt you, okay?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Let me say this to all of you theists. Theists, pray for these people, and I'll tell you why.
Oh no, he got dropped. I don't know what happened there.
Oops.
Okay. Finger slipped.
Yeah, I know how that happens. So that was. I don't know why he expected it to go any differently. If he apparently listens to you, and he apparently has listened to the show before because he knew who I was. So, and he thought this would go somewhat differently because of his testimony.
I have no idea why I thought that was going to go well. That's out there.
Talk to Jason. Jason, pronouns he, him, calling in from misanthropic orangutans who wants to talk about the use of pronouns. Jason, you're on the Atheist Experience with Forrest and John. How you doing today?
It's a good day.
It's a great day.
Yeah.
What were you calling to talk about? Because the reason why I waited for a second is because the call screen that Tina was filling in, it just said pronouns, and that was it. And I wanted to know if we were going to talk about it.
Oh, sure. I'm an English teacher, and
Okay.
I was wanting to discuss the use of pronouns in education. From my perspective as a teacher, there is a grammatical structure that is broken with alternatives. And I see the history as supporting leaving it the way it is and using pronouns that are like one or us in the stead of the they, them construction. I was wondering what you thought of that, because I've thought about it for a long time.
Well, as an English teacher, you surely, they, them are also singular pronouns, right? They can be singular or plural. They've been used singularly since the 1300s. So, what's the issue with doing that?
The issue with doing that is that, as happened 120 years ago when this was a thing again, is that it breaks person and number and it creates confusion.
When does it create confusion? If I tell you right now that someone just rang my doorbell, what pronouns would I use? I would say I'm going to go see what they want. I'm going to go talk to them. And I hope that they are a nice person. I don't need to enforce I hope that he or she, you know what I mean? That doesn't really work.
Well, sure it works. In fact, I would say that both constructions work. But I would also say that the history of he and she supports the same usage that you have for they. So that if I say he, when I'm speaking to someone who's in front of me, say, and that person presents as male, and by the way, I understand that presentation is not an indication and that trans people are people. That's not my issue. My issue is entirely grammatical and not political. And it frustrates me because I don't feel like I can ethically teach a thing that I perceive to be as a broken construction.
So hold on. Let me, Jason.
Yeah,
let me ask you this: if I get not realizing somebody would go by they them because you don't realize that they're not that they don't adhere to the gender binary that you seem to want to. But once they tell you, hey, I go by they them, like that's how I want to be referred to, are you saying that you're going to just deny that and continue to misgender them? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that at all. And I am not adhering
Okay.
to a gender binary. I am saying that we have pronouns in standard English that already serve the function that is desired by those who would want alternative who would want to use alternative pronouns. Therefore,
for which they them are part of that
standard,
set.
We don't need to create new ones. Now, I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
We're not creating new ones. They them's not new. Like, am I misunderstanding something here?
I'll be more specific. I mean, a new usage. I have no.
They're not new. It's not using the new.
That's not a new usage. It's been around. Literally, Shakespeare uses singular they.
Well, I understand. I also know that when people create alternative sets, there's a zhe out there. I think I'm pronouncing that properly.
Those are neo-pronouns, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, what? That was interesting.
Those are neo-pronouns, yeah. Zim and Jay and all those things. They are new ones, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't quite have a name for those, so that's great. See, all I'm saying is that I can't see why I need to adopt this new construction when the old construction, one, us, we, already works. And I know we've already
so hold on.
That it goes back.
Wait, just to be clear, you're saying one, us, and we are the ones that you think are preferable here. So just to be clear, when is we used as a singular pronoun?
Well, I would say we is used when we talk about ourselves as part of a larger group. So, as I've heard people in the various shows refer to themselves when they speak of the scientific community, we think that the Earth is not 6,000 years old, something like that.
But that is still, when we talk about the scientific community, that is still a group of people. I'm asking, like, if I was to talk to John, and John is non-binary, right? So I'm sitting here and I'm talking about John, and you don't want me to use they. So I can't say they asked you a question. You want me to refer to John as we and us, and you think that's going to be less confusing?
No, I think that in order for someone to encompass what they like to express about their gender or their nature, that might be some sort of plurality or something in between a binary construction, that we works in a lovely way, and that person could use we and it would work wonderfully, and it would and we
as
Jason,
a royal we, sure, but like
I would do that, and I would use that in reference to
Jason,
you're talking about using the royal we as a common parlance thing that has no third party usage or third person usage that I know of in this way. Or that I can think of. Maybe there's an obvious one that I'm not paying attention to right now, but like there's no third person usage of we and us that I can think of off the top of my head, except for them. And so like, it just doesn't really line up. And at the end of the day, you're suggesting something that I would argue is far more confusing and not culturally relevant enough in order to replace something that is already culturally useful. Like, surely you can agree, Jason, all language is made up. All language is a cultural construction. All language is something that changes and adapts over time. All we're arguing for here is just using words the way that they have been used for a long time in a slightly new way to reinforce the understanding of something else that is also culturally constructed, being gender.
And
I also,
yes,
Jason, I also want to, I want to go back. Hold on. I want to go back to my original question here, in that if somebody identifies as non-binary and they request that you say they, them, that you're not sitting there saying that you're going to refuse to do that. This entire conversation is justifying you refusing to not call them they, them, like they ask you to. It just makes you come off like a lying bigot at that point.
I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is that, I mean, I have been someone who has supported the LGBT community, and I'm part of it for 35 years. And I'm not biased against a single soul. What I'm trying to say.
Okay, Jason.
You didn't say
Jason.
you were biased. You said that when you refuse to use someone's preferred pronouns, it makes you come across that way.
That I think that if someone comes to me to answer your question and says, I would like to be used as they, them, and I'm sorry to talk over your Forrest, but I would say, what's your name? I get a name, and I would refer to them by their name because I don't want to use that construction. And so my choices need to be respected as well. And so I would use their name.
Just so.
Oh my God!
So
are you
selfish.
serious? Yeah, are you seriously saying like it's too much to ask me to use just different pronouns for another person because I disagree with this thing? Like I'm like I get it. You want me to use they them. Fuck that. I'm just going to use your name the entire time, which it incredibly convolutes the conversation.
So much more funky. That's so much more difficult to do.
I'm sorry, godless engineer, your actual name is escaping me at the moment. I'm sorry that it's difficult for you. I just am saying I think the standard is fine and we don't need to make a change.
And again, you're wanting
Jason.
to force other people to follow your particular paradigm in this particular respect. When somebody asks you to use they, them pronouns for them, you're sitting there and saying, nope, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm just going to use your name every single fucking time. And that just makes you come across as a transphobic, or not transphobic, but just a bigot.
A queerphobic in this case.
Queerphobic. Yeah, queerphobic.
Yeah, that's
bigot.
the thing, Jason. No one's saying you are transphobic or anything. We're saying it sounds awfully that, and it makes you look that way. If you like, first of all, it's not changing the paradigm. The paradigm is that they, them pronouns can be either singular or plural. Everybody uses singular they all the fucking time. And like, that's why I was saying earlier, when I said before you called that you have to go out of your way not to think, because you have to go out of your way to never recall a single time when, somebody left a package at my door. I wonder what they left it there for. People say that shit all the fucking time. You never say, I wonder what one left it there for. I wonder what we left it there for. You would never do that. That's ridiculous. And you certainly wouldn't go hunt down the person to find their name so that you could then say, I wonder what Joe David left this package. It's just a stupid thing to do. And what John's telling you is that, like, it is so much more difficult to try to keep someone's name in your mind so you can say, he said this and she said that and Jasmine said that too. It's just pointlessly complicated when you could just use a word that everybody already uses all the time and has for hundreds of years.
But they haven't used it for hundreds of years. It's gone out.
Yes, they have.
And it's come back. I'm sorry if you don't understand that. That is
no. Oh my God, the condescension.
All the time. You may be an English teacher, but I remember taking English classes, and I remember my whole life I've used they as a singular pronoun all the time. I've done it frequently. I've done it today.
Is that it breaks person and number?
No, it doesn't.
No. Okay,
No,
Jason, what you're telling us here today is that it puts more of work on you because you have a different understanding of, I guess, the usage of words for some reason. And so you don't want to be burdened with respecting another person. That's what this really gets down to. You don't want to be burdened with respecting another person and how they want to be referred to. So you are going to impose your own paradigm on that person. And I feel like that just makes you kind of shitty. At least it makes you come across as shitty.
I just said, because I'm trying to remain calm and I'm trying to remain on topic. Can you tell me what I just said? Did I or did I not agree with you?
No, you're sounding like a bigot?
I did. I actually said the words that I agree with you about the usage of the pronoun they. But at the moment, the both of you are so emotional about this issue, which is a hot button issue. You have missed the fact that I am agreeing with you.
I'm not emotional. I'm laughing about this.
You to get upset and tell me how.
I'm not upset.
I'm upset.
I'm not upset, and no one has called you anything.
You told me, Forrest, you told me that what I was saying was stupid.
No, I didn't.
Oh no.
You got so caught up
Wait a minute,
in what you missed saying. Well, go watch back the call as you have.
Wait a minute, hold on. Let me correct myself. I probably did say what you are saying is stupid. I never said that you are stupid. I never called you a name, but I may have said that what you're saying is stupid. I know for sure that I said it was unnecessary and it was overcomplicated and it was ridiculous and it was silly. And I will continue saying those things. I'm not calling you anything. I'm certainly not getting emotional. I'm laughing a bit because it's kind of silly what the lengths you're going to avoid.
I just agree with you about that particular usage. And we didn't hear that because we were too busy yelling at what kind of person I am for my silly usages.
We didn't say anything about what kind of person you are.
Robust thing.
No, hold on, Jason, I'm wondering
if you agree that the word can be used singularly and has been used singularly since the 1300s and like is just a consistent thing that everybody knows. If you agree with all these positions, then it reinforces what John and I are saying here, which is that it seems that your position on this issue is purely out of your own comfort and just not wanting to readjust your language to what is, really more popular in modern times, which is how language has always worked. So you as an English teacher are going out of your way not to engage in the function of English and instead are holding to this bizarre, convoluted, and if we're being very honest, selfish worldview about how you think English should work.
Well, I am a teacher. It is my job to teach the standard. And so I wanted to talk about the ethics of that. And apparently you think it's a very selfish thing for me to teach standard English in a standard way in a public school classroom. That was the purpose of my call to discuss that.
If you had taught, Jason, if you were teaching standard English, you would teach that they is a singular pronoun as well as a plural pronoun. It can be used either way.
Again,
and that as gender is a social construct, there are more than two options. And so if you don't want to call yourself he or she because you don't feel you fall into those categories, they is an appropriate way to refer to yourself. And it's very popular and it's very common and it's been around for a long time. Those are all standard English lessons.
Well, I don't agree that it's been, I know that it was in usage, but it's gone out of usage and it's come back. That's the history. I think you've got a bandwagon fallacy there in that it's very popular. I don't care if it's popular. That's a bandwagon fallacy. Yeah,
that's not. I wasn't saying it's accurate because it's popular. Oh my God, dude, that's not what the bandwagon fallacy is.
Jason, yeah, you're totally wrong about the fallacy there because Forrest wasn't saying it is correct because a lot of people do it that way. What Forrest, maybe Forrest can correct me on my understanding of what he was saying was just that, the way that language changes, we are now using it like in this way, and which is still a fine way to use it. Is perfectly permissible in the language. It's just that culture has shifted to do this thing, and that's not a bandwagon fallacy because it was never wrong to use it a different way.
Well, that I think I'll concede that, but I don't think it's working for the reason that you say. You were saying the one thing that you did say that I think makes it a bandwagon, makes me wrong about it, is that people were using it. I'm not remembering it precisely, but I'll agree with you that was not a bandwagon fallacy. But again, what I'm trying to say is if I disagree because of the structure, because of the study I put into the structure of English, which has an internally consistent set of rules and a bunch of idioms, how can I properly do it if I can argue grammatically that it doesn't work? And that was the entire purpose of my call.
Because you can't argue grammatically that it doesn't work.
Hold on, I'm very confused because Jason, you seem to agree that it's been used in a singular fashion since however long, and it's been that way for the longest time. It's been grammatically fine for the longest time, but it seems like now you think that it's not grammatically working fine.
No, I agree that people use it. I don't think it's a good usage. When I was in school 35 years ago.
Is it a wrong usage? Is it not how English works? Is it not how English works?
Language changes.
Is it not how English works?
Etymology as well.
Does English work that way? Does English work that
I
way?
missed it. Which way?
Huh?
I missed it.
Does they them being used as singular to refer as a pronoun being used singularly to refer to a single person? Is that not how it's always worked, like in English?
No, it's not how it's
so
always worked. It didn't work
Not
that
always,
way
but
35 years ago, as I said earlier. So
It did work that way 35 years ago, Jason.
Yeah.
Like, even Jason, first of all, you're fucking wrong. And second of all, even if you were right, you yourself said it went out of style and now it's come back into style, which means it's back in common usage, which is why it's being used, because words don't have strict definitions. They have usages, right? It's why in the dictionary, the word one of the definitions of the word literally is not literally, because that's the way it's used. And you could go back at a certain time, you could go back to the 1920s and say cool to somebody and they would wonder why you're talking about temperature. But for the past 100 years, we've all known that the word cool also means nonchalant and cavalier and attractive and stylish and whatever else, right? Because that's how fucking words work, dude. So, like, even if I agreed with your narrative that there was a brief period in human history somewhere between the 1300s and the 2020s where for some reason we stopped using the singular they, it doesn't stand a reason to say that today we can't use it that way. And I hear you talking over me, but at the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that I've got a fucking thing right here. The Oxford English Dictionary's website has a whole fucking article on the history of the singular they and how these fucking, the editors-in-chief of the dictionary argue against people saying that it can't be used singularly. Like, this is not fucking news, dude. It's way more complicated to try to do things the way you're doing it.
I'm merely advocating for the standard of English that is taught in classrooms, and I've been in classrooms for decades, and it's not what you're saying. So I'm advocating
so
standard.
Jason,
It's like
Jason,
I know.
Do you think, Jason, do you think the standard of English taught in classrooms, because you live in Missouri, do you think the standard of English taught in classrooms in Missouri, not including the idea of non-binary gender pronouns, do you think that that is more guided by, like, academic standards of what English is and how English works? Or do you think that has more to do with the fact that you live in a very conservative state, in a very conservative country that is currently struggling with the idea of non-binary gender, even as the vast preponderance of scientists have come out in favor of this, and like it's a big cultural movement? Do you think maybe 35 years ago, when none of this shit was coming out and being as public, maybe then also the culture in which you are living may have influenced the fact that you weren't teaching about non-binary gender pronouns at the time? Maybe.
I think, to genuinely answer your question, which was quite lengthy, so I hope I get a hold of it, is that I don't think that it applies the way you're saying, or meaning, because that was a big one.
It was a pretty simple question.
Well, it was, yes, but you said a lot of different things, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't quite internalize all of it. So
I fleshed out the idea. Do you want me to do it again, but slower? Like, I fleshed out the idea, but it's a very simple question.
That I got all the parts, and they didn't. And so here's, I'm going to try and answer the question as I remember it, and I've got it. If I have it wrong, please correct me. I don't think the social climate of my time, which was quite anti-LGBT, et cetera, which is not a part of what relates to my question, had anything to do with how it was taught in those days. I think it was taught as a standard, and that there were usages for those pronouns that were in a certain way, and they were used in that way, and they were not used differently. And when I was in school and I misused it, which is the common alternative usage now, I was chastised for misusing the pronoun. So it was taught that way, and then I was taught that way, and I still think that it's a robust standard. And if I've missed, and
Jason, let me ask you this: do you think that we should update our current usage in a modern context, not in like any other older context? Do you think that we should update our usage to include our ever expanding knowledge of like sex and gender, so that people that are not part of the gendered binary can be fairly represented. Because let me just tell you right now, Jason, if somebody comes up to you and be like, hey, I'm non-binary, I want you to use they them for me, and then you ask their name and only will use their name to refer to them, that is so like I'm trying to think of the word. You're dismissing their identity at that point. You're dismissing what they just told you.
Such as you, and I hear one such as you speak, and tell me that I am doing a certain thing that I am not doing. I find myself angered by you and others such as you, and one.
Oh, so you're getting emotional now.
No,
don't get emotional.
At all. I'm telling you, by using the pronouns that you say don't work, that it works.
Okay, so again, what I want to say is that you're making the case to justify you not having to show respect to another person, is what it boils down to, at least for me.
In no way. I am part of the LGBT community. I founded the LGBT center at my college 30 years ago. I protest. I vote. In no way is what you're saying correct. I think standard English does what it should with the formal and personal pronouns, and I wanted to talk about the ethics of teaching that.
As a member,
right,
as a member of the LGBT community, Jason, as Jason,
when I'm
Jason.
Not,
Jason, as a member of the LGBT community,
with a trans
Jason, as a member of the LGBT community, I don't know what you are, right? But you can tell me, like I'm assuming we can engage in hypotheticals here. If you went up to a person and said, like, I am a gay person and I have a husband or whatever, like you explain, I'm married and I'm gay. And that person said, okay, who's the man and who's the woman in your marriage? You would understand how that's a shitty microaggression, right?
I wouldn't call it a microaggression. I would just call it shitty. But that's not, again, what I'm doing.
But so you understand how that would be shitty, and how even if this person were to then tell you, well, I mean, fuck, dude, the standard has been man and woman in marriage. So I'm just putting it into the standard the way it's always been, in a way that makes sense for me. And so like, I'm not going to misgender your husband. I'm not going to call your husband a different name. I'm not going to call you a slur, but I'm just going to say that this person's the woman in the marriage. Like, cause that's the standard. You can see how that would still be an increasingly shitty thing to do, that maybe this person means well, thinks well, whatever, but it's really just ridiculously dumb, and it goes well above like what you would expect a normal, reasonable person to do. It's a shitty thing to do. It overcomplicates a relatively uncomplicated situation. You get that, right?
There's been an awful lot said, and I think we may have forgotten what I said at the beginning of the call, which is that the pronouns, when you look at their histories, and I'm talking about he and I'm talking about she, can be used in this way, man. Okay? They can. I'm just trying
to get across to you.
Man and God.
I'm just trying to get across to you, Jason, that you are doing the same fucking thing here. When you tell when someone approaches you and says, hey, I use they, them pronouns, and you say, okay, I'm only going to refer to you by your name. I refuse to engage in the pronouns that you use. I refuse to validate the pronouns that you use. I refuse to accept and justify and participate in this paradigm that you are expressing here. Because when you look at the history of the words, I, as an academic, can tell you, when you look at the history of the language, it has this and this context. Nobody gives half a shit about your academic studies in this way, or the way that you think you have a superior opinion to other academics in this area who don't think anything you're saying is reasonable and don't support anything you're saying. and all it makes you sound like is an asshole. You're overcomplicating something. And if you come along and say, no, it's okay, I'm LGBT, I protest, it doesn't matter, because all you gave this person is, I refuse to participate in your identity. It's the same way as somebody asking a gay couple, well, who's the man? It's just fucking shitty. It's overcomplicating something that isn't complicated for your erudite opinions as a great expert in this field that disagrees with other experts in this field that nobody has time to listen to, and you're not going to explain. It just makes you look like a dick. That's all we're saying.
I think you've misrepresented what I'm saying. I don't want and don't do the who's the man in the marriage thing. People have asked me about that with my boyfriend. It is a shitty thing. Okay?
I never claimed you did.
Well, I mean, I'm saying you are objecting to that construction. You talked about how that very thing, you used that very example. I am starting to get a little emotional at this point. But here's all I'm saying is that there is a history of pronoun being used in a gender neutral way.
Yeah, okay, we understand that there, Jason.
Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit, Jason?
So I think the real question, hey, Jason, I need to ask you a question.
I will concede they, them, if you will understand that what I'm trying to say is that he has had a gender neutral construction.
He does not. Okay. Yes, Jason. Sometimes he can be used in a gender neutral way, in the same way that sometimes dude is used gender neutrally, and all sorts of things. Now, the question to you, Jason, is if you walk up to a woman and call her a he, do you think that she is going to be hurt and offended and annoyed, or do you think she is going to stop and say, as an English teacher, can you please explain to me the history of the word he and how it can be gender neutral in this way so that I can choose whether or not I understand whether you are a bigot or just someone with a great opinion? Or do you think she's just going to be fucking annoyed and hurt by that? What do you think is going to happen, Jason?
I don't think that would be the usage I would use. I know that many times in my life, and I've seen other people do it, and I've heard it on these various shows, where people refer to people as a group as guys, and nobody gets upset. So, I mean, it does happen.
Guys and he are different words, right?
That's very common construction these days to say, hey, guys.
Yes.
And it has a history of being used in a neutral way. So
yes, there are, just to be clear, there are some people who disagree with that and don't think it should be used that way and are arguing for the language to be changed and for us to all collectively stop using it that way because it doesn't work that way. And I don't agree with their arguments, but I think they're valid arguments. The question is, you're not using the word guys, Jason. You're arguing for the word he.
Sometimes. It goes back and forth over time. So we're
right.
At the moment,
it goes back and forth over time, like a language, Jason, like a language that also uses a singular they.
But I already conceded that, did I not? I mean, I could not avoid such. But
Jason,
can you repeat what I said without mocking me about he?
No, Jason, I have a question for you.
Okay,
I have a.
Trans people.
I have a question for you. I'm wanting to know, kind of, I guess, a good wrap up for our conversation here is answering just this one very poignant question. And that's, do you think the ethics of using your idea of English is more important than the ethics of you respecting someone's identity?
I wanted to talk about that at the beginning of this call, but I got really upset. I've been saying over and over again, I want to.
I'm sorry. You screaming the word, somebody got really upset is very fucking funny, Jason. That's really great.
It is really great. That's what I called in. I wanted to talk about.
Oh my God.
No.
Okay,
Jason, I would like you to just ask yourself seriously, because I asked the question a minute ago and I feel like you didn't really answer it seriously. Just You walk up to a trans woman and start calling her a he. You walk up to a mask-presenting non-binary person and start calling them a he. You start using traditionally male pronouns and collective nouns and all these things for these people and say, no, it's okay because I don't agree with your construction. All right, this other one, it doesn't make any sense. And all John has been saying this whole time, and all I've been saying this whole time is, for number one, academia disagrees with you, just standard English disagrees with you. But most importantly, even if you had some case for this, just common parlance doesn't work that way. And you, as an English teacher of all fucking people, should be able to recognize that language changes over time, English changes over time, usages change over time. And you sitting here arguing about this to somebody when they're just looking for basic human dignity, especially in today's political climate, doesn't make you academic or intelligent or any of that. It just makes you a dick.
Would I call them he, and I said no repeatedly. So I'm telling you that I am willing to show respect.
And yet that's what you're arguing for.
Teach it in the classroom, and apparently we can't talk about that, which is a shame because I understand.
How would you teach it in a classroom? How would you teach it in a classroom that it's not appropriate to use singular they, despite the fact that lots and lots of people do all the time and have for a very long time?
See, I feel like I'm being strawmanned in that I didn't say that. So, you
did.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't refer to a transgender person as he if that person is not he. So I feel like I'm being strawmanned in that regard. But it doesn't matter. You're wanting me to get off the call because you think I'm a sort of a ridiculous idiot. And that's okay.
Nobody said any of that either. Again, it's very funny to have you be fucking screaming about how somebody else is emotional, and then in the same breath as you claim that I'm strawmanning you, you then say, you think I'm a ridiculous idiot. You want me to get off this call, which no one has said at all. You're just putting words in our mouth.
I did do that wrong. Yes, I did. I did that wrong. Okay.
So, Jason, I do want to clarify something. We weren't trying to imply like what you had said about the trans person calling them he or whatnot. What you said originally, just so that we can, come back around to this, you said that you would reject the usage of they, them that is requested of you, and you would instead just use their name. And I pointed out at the time how that's very disrespectful and also is dismissing their non-binary identity. And I wonder if you recognize that.
I am disrespecting their gender by using the name by which they are generally identified. I do not think makes.
You are disrespecting them by singling them out in the way that you treat them and making a really complicated situation out of something that is genuinely simple and commonplace and everyday and non-consequential.
And not standard, which is my job, and I wanted to.
It is standard. It is standard, and it has been standard for hundreds of years. And even if there was this weird lapse in usage that you talk about, which I don't believe exists, because the fucking Oxford English Dictionary doesn't believe it exists. I'm not an English person, I'm just a biologist, a big dumb stupid idiot. But like, I can't.
Your video about what transgender people.
Oh my God. Jesus Christ. I didn't say you were calling me that. I was making a joke. I was being facetious and downplaying myself. This is the most one-sided emotional conversation. It's bizarre. Like, there's so much fucking anger and frustration coming from across the phone, and we're just trying to get down to brass tacks of the fact, like, if you reject this concept, you are not only doing English wrong, you're also just being an asshole. That's the whole thing. That's the entire argument. Is that, like, even if I agreed with your academic perception of what English should be, that isn't how it is used commonly, and you're making a big deal out of nothing, and you're further marginalizing non-binary people and making them feel more out of place and more rejected and more of a fucking pariah, and you're making them feel like they're out of, like, just this thing that everybody has to cater to and kowtow to, and it's such a fucking inconvenience for you that you now have to go out of of your way to not use pronouns at all when talking about them, but only use their name, which, by the way, I can't get over the fact that this whole time you keep saying I would use their name to talk about them. You're using fucking singular they and them, dude. It's just like that whole fucking thing is just so unnecessarily convoluted just to get to a point where you feel more comfortable. It's not about your fucking comfort, Jason. It's about their fucking humanity. And it's weird to me that you're making this big of a deal out of it. That's the whole thing. That's all I'm trying to get across to you for 36 agonizing minutes.
That you did, because it's not about my fucking comfort. I wanted to talk about the ethics of the standard and not about my
The ethics is using they, them. That's the ethical position.
Right. Jason, I'm glad that you brought it back to the ethics, because like I want to know, do you think that your ethics and your perception of correct grammar is more important than the ethics of correctly identifying someone by their pronouns?
I think that I'm glad you brought that back, because I wanted to answer that. I don't think it's more important, but I don't think it misidentifies the way I have described it. I don't know if you caught it, because I only did it once, and we've all been talking over each other. Okay? But no, I don't think it's more important. I wanted to talk about how to teach it, because Forrest, I know you're a teacher. And so that's all I really wanted to do. And it
seems, but correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but it seems like your position on that is to not teach it, right? Like you're saying, don't teach the singular use of they, them.
Again, it's not that. No, how is what I wanted to talk about, and what was ethically correct.
Let me help you. Let me help you then. I'll do that.
I'll tell you how I do it.
I've got it for you. So it's what I already did a minute ago, and then you completely ignored it and straw man. If I was speaking to a class, if I was an English teacher today, if I was smart enough to be an English teacher, I would be up in front of the classroom and I'm teaching about pronouns. I'm like, all right, y'all, sometimes, right, I don't want to use somebody's name over and over and over because that's really weird and clunky and difficult to keep up with. And so here's what we're going to say. We can say he or him or it or she or her or they or them. We have all these words and these are called pronouns. And so typically boys are referred to with he and him and his, and typically girls are referred to with she and her and hers. But what if you're neither a boy nor a girl, right? Because gender is a social construct, it's a really fuzzy thing. Well, we have this other option. Most people who fall into that category, what we call non-binary, they generally like to go by they and them, which really works for them. But there are also other options out there. And so it's really just polite, if you're not sure, to ask somebody. And that's why you'll also notice a lot of adults will introduce themselves by telling you what pronouns they prefer as well. It doesn't always happen, but it does happen sometimes. And that's just to make things easier. The most important thing, kids, is to remember to respect people's pronouns. And if you get them wrong, apologize and try to do better in the future. That's the biggest thing. That's how I would teach it if I was a teacher, Jason. That'd be that fucking hard.
I tell you that I am learning from this call, Forrest. I don't think I would disagree with anything you said except for one tiny tweak where I feel like I have to address standard and non-standard usage and basically you've helped me understand how to better do these things, both of you. And so I appreciate that. Okay. I would probably give that speech that you gave, Forrest. I probably would. But I would address standard and non-standard issues and the history of the words to show that, as you pointed out repeatedly, language changes. I'm very much aware of that. And what I'm trying to say is some of the older usages aren't as derogatory as we're making them out to be. And so I would encourage kids to learn about the history of the language. Read Baugh's History of the English Language. It's a wonderful thing. And so, okay.
You know what would be incredibly difficult in that respect, Jason? Jason, it'd be really difficult for you to maintain that and tell them to read Chaucer or Shakespeare or Jane Austen. considering they use the singular they them.
They all the time.
I thought adults.
Anyway.
I could tell adults that. I could tell it's not who you're teaching how you do that. But I don't disagree with what you said, Forrest. I would probably say that in class, and that does help me do it better.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm glad we could be useful, Jason. We're going to talk to you later because we're already 17 minutes over time. But thanks so much for the call.
Right. Well, thank you for your time.
Bye-bye. Won't someone please think of the grammar? Please. With that, y'all, it's the end of the show. It's been a fun one. We're over 70 minutes over time, and I've got another show in 30 minutes that I got a call time for, so I've got to go. But John, anything that you want to wrap up with?
Not really. I mean, that was an interesting last call there that we had. Freaking pronoun. It's always the pronouns. I remember one guy we had wanted to identify as a helicopter and then played stupid about that whole thing. It was really crazy. But in any case, I feel like
made some progress.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I hope Jason learns from that and maybe can communicate better, but it really kind of came across, at least at first, like he was like, well, it's more important to adhere to the traditional usages of these things, which I feel like he wasn't even correct about, but it's, whatever.
That's the biggest thing. I feel like he wasn't correct about these traditional usage, and it depends on what you mean by traditional, right? But like, I feel like he wasn't correct on the historical usage of this. And again, I don't know if it came up in chat because I don't have the wrench, but like I did show this do I put singular? I closed the tab. Here we go. I did show this for a minute. This was an article from frickin' the Oxford English Dictionary that I had up on my screen for a moment there, of a brief history of the singular they. This is from OED.com. Hold on a second. I can actually bring it closer to the middle of the screen. I just have to make sure I don't have Call-in Studio up because otherwise I'm going to dox a lot of people. There we go. Now they put that back in the middle of the screen, and now I can share it that way. So like you've got like, this is the frickin' Oxford, like with this whole history of it. And I highlighted this at the very end here about like, the editor, former editor-in-chief of this dictionary also dismisses objections to this singular use of they being unsupported by historical record. And so it's just like, I don't know, man. Even people who object to singular they as a grammatical error use it themselves when they're not looking. A sure sign that anyone who objects to a singular they is, if not a fool or an idiot, at least hopelessly out of date. I didn't write that. The dictionary did. But like, that's the thing for me is like, it's even if I agreed with what Jason was saying, it's just so unnecessarily clunky and awkward, and it definitely is harmful. So I appreciate the fact that at the end there, he was saying like, that he's learned something from this call. That makes me happy. It got heated for a minute, but I hope that we came to some common ground.
All the way from Mexico, named Ulrich. Ulrich is saying, and I want to make sure I read the prompt right. It says, veganism, it is wrong. And how can you be misled by evolution? Well, Ulrich, love to hear from you. You came in with two topics. Now, to be fair, we're not here to debate veganism. I mean, it's a wonderful topic, but that's not what this channel is about. That's like an ancillary thing. You can be an atheist and not be a vegan. That being said, we would love to hear your second talking point. It sounds like you have a little bit of a problem with evolution. Can you kind of fill out what you're referring to when you think that like we've been misled by evolution?
Yeah, I mean, evolution makes you think that eating meat is wrong. Something that we have done for thousands of years, that even if you don't eat meat, if you're a woman and you want to get pregnant, you can't because you don't have enough proteins. So it goes against nature. How do you believe such a thing? Because you believe in evolution.
Look, we've done slavery for thousands of years. It doesn't make it right to continue it just because we've done it for a long time. And there's no reason to think that you can't get pregnant if you're vegan. There's all the evidence suggests that people that are vegan can be very healthy.
Yeah, to be sure, my mother's been a vegetarian all of her life, and she had 3 children. So I don't know. Well, she had no meat. She had no meat, none.
Yeah, but she ate eggs and drank milk and stuff like that, I imagine.
Nope, no eggs. No eggs.
Look, I don't want to turn this into a vegan debate, but there's nothing in meat or dairy that is required to consume. Nothing at all. You can get it all from plant-based sources. So that argument's moot.
Yeah. Also, Rick, now your complaint with the veganism thing is one thing, but you're a theist. You actually believe in a God, and so you think that your God has a better way, and that's fine. Before us to consider the better way that your God posits, why should we believe in your God?
Because if you don't, you start believing weird things like evolution and veganism, and you believe you can declare yourself the opposite gender, and it makes it real and stuff like that. It messes up your mind to not be connected to God.
Well, that's not actually an argument. I mean, so to be sure, just saying I don't like your position is not an argument why we should accept your position, right? So we would still need an argument for why your position is true, not whether or not you like our position.
It's not about liking; it's about being confused.
Only you think it's a confusing position. We would just say the same thing about yours. We would say you're confused, right? But saying you're confused is not an argument for demonstrating why somebody's wrong, right? You can think somebody's confused, but just stating that out of your mouth doesn't make it true. So what are like the facts and evidences that would lead anyone to believe that your God is real?
I mean, if you think men have vagina, you are confused. And I think that's a strong argument.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is you don't have an argument. Which God do you believe in?
The Christian God, the real God.
Christian God. And your God has real morals, right?
Yes, he does.
He has real morals. Have you actually read the Bible?
Yes, I have.
Sure. Do you think that there was ever a time period or ever an occasion in which it's justified to punish people for crimes they never committed?
For crimes they never committed? No.
No, we should never do that. So if you read in the Quran that that Muhammad was instructed by God to punish, say, some women for crimes they never committed, you would rightly say, well, that doesn't make sense. It makes it harder to believe in that God, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Open your Bible, if you have one, to Deuteronomy 22. I'd love to show you a passage. This is a really interesting situation. It says, this is a law given to Moses on Mount Sinai. It says, suppose a man marries a woman, but after going into her dislikes her and makes up charges against her, slandering her by saying, I married this woman, but when I lay with her, I did not find evidence of her virginity. We'll pause there. What evidence do you think he might have been looking for?
Evidence of virginity. Look, that's
yeah. So what? I'm asking for a simple answer to the question, which is, what evidence do you think he was looking for?
No, why do you think an atheist can explain the Bible to me? You will never be able.
So I'm not asking you. I'm not explaining it to you. I'm asking you to answer the question, and it sounds like you can't answer. So we'll try this again. I'm asking you. I'm not telling you. I'm asking you. What evidence do you think this person was looking for to validate that she was a virgin? What do you think?
You're setting up a trap, and it doesn't work.
I'm not setting up a trap. In fact, I'm just asking you a question. In fact, if you actually had read the Bible, you would know that this is not a trap. This is a simple question. What do you think the evidence is that he was looking for?
Blood. About blood when the woman loses her.
There we go. We found it. Yeah, so he's looking for blood because that's what they thought was the sign of virginity. So we can continue reading the passage then. It says, the father of the young woman and her mother shall then submit the evidence of the young woman's virginity to the elders at the city gate. And it says, here is the evidence of my daughter's virginity. They will spread out the cloth before the elders of the town, and the elders of the town shall take the men and punish them. So the evidence is, in fact, whether or not they can produce the sheet, the marital cloth with the blood, correct?
Yes. That's why.
Fantastic. All right. So if in fact she bleeds on the cloth, then what that means is theoretically she was a virgin. If she doesn't bleed on the cloth, it means that she lied about her virginity, correct?
You should only have sex within marriage, and you should not have.
I didn't ask you about that. I asked you about the evidence. Given the way the passage is laid out, it's basically instructing you to use the bloody sheet as the evidence of her guilt or innocence, correct?
Because marriage is very serious with God. You should not have sex without marriage. That's what it is.
I'm sure it is. So the question is, based on the evidence of the sheet, that is used to determine her guilt or her innocence, correct?
Why is that a point?
I'm asking you. We'll try this again. I'm just looking for a yes or no. So if you have to pray to God for a yes or no, go ahead. And in fact, Jesus says that don't worry when they drag you before the councils for words. The Holy Spirit will give you words. So yes or no. Is the bloody sheet the evidence of her guilt or innocence?
Who cares? Why?
I care, and you care too, which is why you're evading the question. You're so terrified to answer the question because you probably already know the answer to the question. So again, we're going to ask you to grow a little bit of a backbone here and participate in the conversation. Yes or no, is the bloody sheet evidence of her guilt or virginity?
Am I a coward for calling your show? There are two atheists against one theist. You are.
Yes, you're a coward for not answering the question. So we'll try it again. It's a yes or no. Is the bloody sheet the evidence?
I refuse to play your games.
I would. If I was in your shoes and I was about to get cooked, I'd refuse or run away as well. It makes you look really good. So I'll answer the question. The answer to the question is yes. Yes, the proof of the woman's virginity was in fact the bloody sheet. This is a well-known practice in the ancient Near East and other parts of the world, like in Africa and some parts of the Mediterranean. Now it says that if it's true, it says verse 20, if however the charge is true, that evidence of the young woman's virginity was not found, then they shall bring the young woman out to the entrance of her father's house, and the men of her house or town shall stone her to death. So do you believe that a woman should be stoned if in fact she was not found to be a virgin on her wedding night because she didn't bleed on the sheet?
What did Jesus say about stoning? Whoever...
I didn't. That wasn't an actual answer to my question. My question was, it's yes or no, by the way. Do you believe that it's a fair punishment to stone a woman based on whether or not there's a bloody sheet? Yes or no?
I believe if you're without sin, you should throw the first stone. That's what the Bible teaches.
I didn't ask. That doesn't answer my question. My question is, do you believe that when the Bible said you can stone a woman based on whether or not she bled on that sheet, if that was good or bad? Do you think that was a good command or a bad command?
All commandments of God are God and true.
Okay, so this is good. Okay, so it was good to command the people, the Israelites, namely, to stone women who don't bleed on their marital sheets. That was a good command?
No, because if you can only stone if you're without.
Oh, that was a bad command. Okay, so this is confusing because I thought you just said 30 seconds ago that all of God's commands are good. And then I asked you if this command was good, and you said no. So we'll try this again. Are all of God's commands good? Yes or no?
You cannot understand what that means because you don't have the Holy Spirit.
It's interesting. I didn't hear a yes or no. Mike, did you hear a yes or no?
Did not hear it. Nope.
I didn't hear one. We'll try this again. I need a yes or no. Are all of God's commands good? Yes or no?
Do women have vaginas? Yes or no? Can you answer that question?
Oh, okay. So you can't answer it. You're a coward?
I'm calling you two atheists.
You can't answer it. Okay, it's fine. We're used to Christians being cowards. It's fine. So the reality is you've never read your Bible. You have no idea that God thinks it's perfectly okay to punish innocent women. Are you aware that not all women bleed their first time?
You're now a gynecologist. You're an expert about women.
Are you aware that not all women bleed the first time? In fact, according to recent studies from Flow Health, it's only about 43% of the time. So slightly less than half of women actually bleed the first time they do the deed. And I actually have documentation from ancient Greece and from the ancient Hebrews about this particular problem. In fact, some of them even brag specifically about how they can go and diddle women and not cause them to bleed by using particular practices, thereby bypassing the virginity laws. So we know for sure that not all women, even in ancient times, not even Hebrew women, always bled. So I'll ask you, are you aware that not all women bleed their first time?
You read ancient pornographic text. I think that's what you.
I didn't ask you that. It's almost like he can't answer the question. Here, I'll ask the chat. Hey, chat, put a 1 in the comments if you are aware that women don't always bleed their first time. Let's see if the chat can answer the question. I know that the chat doesn't have the Holy Spirit, but I'm assuming that they can answer the question. We'll find out. I could be wrong. Oh, I see a 1 coming in already. Okay, we got a couple 1s coming in. Okay, it seems like even without the Holy Spirit, the chat is able to answer the question. So I'm hoping that the Holy Spirit is giving you the power. I hope the paraclete that Jesus left for you is able to give you the strength to say yes or no to the question. Do you know that not all women bleed their first time?
I'm only interested in my wife and not other women, so I don't care.
Gotcha. Okay, so you can't be honest. You can't answer the question because you actually know the logical entailment that the answer leads to, and you don't actually have the Holy Spirit. We appreciate that. Last question on morals. You believe that all morals come from God. So if God commands you to do something, say, for example, when he commanded them to kill the Amalekite babies, that was a good command, right?
So you're teaching the Bible now. Why don't you preach on?
I'm not teaching the Bible. I'm asking you a question. I didn't listen. I'm not teaching anybody the Bible right now. I'm literally asking you yes or no questions. Do you think it was a good command when God said to kill the Amalekite babies?
Don't you think you
listen? Maybe
the whole Bible.
Maybe they deserved it. Maybe those little fucking babies all deserved it. I just want to hear from your mouth what you think. Ulrich, you're the Bible teacher. Tell me, was it a good command when he said to slaughter the Amalekite babies?
You are pro-abortion, right? So I think for you that's excellent.
I didn't ask you about abortion. I asked you about the Amalekite babies. Do you believe that it was a good command to murder the Amalekite babies? Yes or no?
Do you think it's good to kill the baby in the womb?
I didn't ask you that question. You can run all you want. Listen, no one's new here. We all see that you're just running away from the question, and it'll never work here. I've done this far too long to let your pivoting work. So I'll ask you the same question until you actually answer it. Do you think it was a good command when God said to kill the Amalekite babies? Just be honest. Put 10 toes down. Say what you think.
I already answered the question. I thought all commandments of God are good.
Then why is it so hard for you to say yes? Okay, so say yes, it was good when God said to murder the Amalekite babies.
No.
Oh, it wasn't good when he said to do that. I'm getting mixed signals because you just said a minute ago that all of God's commands are good. And then you're saying that this command to kill the Amalekite babies wasn't good. So I guess I need some clarification because I went to school. I didn't study hard in every class, but I thought the word all is like encompassing, meaning there's no exclusions, right? So if the Amalekite babies are somehow the exclusion, let me know. Because I heard that all of God's commands are good, and I thought this was one of God's commands. So we'll try again. Is this command to kill the Amalekite babies good?
Why are they distressed? I called to talk about evolution. Look how far.
It's not a trap at all. I'm simply asking you to give me your opinion about what the Bible says. Teach me, teacher. Listen, I don't have the Holy Spirit. I can't interpret this book on my own. I need you. I need your help, Ulrich. I'm Holy Spiritless. Teach me. Was it a good command when God said to kill the Amalekite babies?
Can you have an adult conversation?
Well, I'm trying, but you won't answer any questions. So I'll give you one last chance. What is a good command when God said to kill the Amalekite babies? Oh, and he dropped. Okay. Well, I think we got the answer to our question. And his argument was premise number 1, wah, wah. Premise number 2, boo hoo. Conclusion, my God is real. I think that was the syllogism for that one. I could be wrong.
He said, well, I brought up evolution, but the problem is that he was the first one to bring up morality, right? He said that we are the ones who are bad for not agreeing with the Bible.
Yeah.
And so you think it'd be so clear and obvious to Christians. which morality is good or bad. But for some reason, it's with these particular questions, they have a hard time doing it.
Yeah, I got to be honest, it's hard for me to meet people in real life that can't look internally at their own beliefs and question them. Because like you and I both had a journey where we looked at what we believed and we came to the conclusion that what we believed, well, just couldn't be true, right? But like, are we crazy for thinking other people should do that?
Yeah, sometimes I question that myself, right? Maybe are we the crazy ones?
Right, yeah. Walter, thank you for joining us. It says that you've got an arguments for the existence of God from the Mere Christianity book. Which one did you want to run?
Well, I think his basic one there is a moral argument.
Oh no, the argument for morals.
Oh man, we're cooked.
Yeah, it's the argument for morals. So first of all, is what God does moral because it's God, or does God do moral things? I mean, that's kind of the first thing you need to clear up.
Well, I think, yeah, it creates an either or there, which both don't work. But if morality is in fact inherently in God's nature, then he's not doing it he doesn't will it to be moral, and he's also not he's not coming under a higher law. It's just part of his nature.
Okay, so everything that God does in the Bible is moral?
Absolutely, yeah.
Justin, you want to...
Buddy. Okay. Well, before we tackle this particular claim, let me ask you a question. Like, if it was immoral to sexually assault somebody today, was it immoral to sexually assault them 5,000 years ago as well?
That would be true, yes.
Yeah, because like if it's immoral to do something, it's not really time dependent, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah. So that being said, was there ever a time period where it was moral to punish somebody with being sexually assaulted?
No.
No, that certainly wouldn't be the case. Do you have a Bible with you? Would you read a Bible passage with me?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. We're going to go to, there's so many to pick from. 2 Samuel, let's go to chapter 12, we're going to verse 11. Let me know when you get there.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So this is a punishment handed down for what happened between David and Bathsheba. So Nathan is giving the prophecy from God about the punishment. And there are two punishments. One is that the baby born from Bathsheba is going to get sick and pass away. The other punishment, it says this, I will raise up trouble against you from within your own household, and I will take your wives before your eyes and give them to your neighbor, and he shall lie with your wives in broad daylight, for you did it secretly, but I'll do this thing before all Israel in broad daylight. And then in chapter 16, 10 of David's wives get sexually assaulted by Absalom on the roof of the palace.
Okay.
So that was moral behavior, right? When God had 10 innocent women punished for the crimes of their husband with sexual assault?
Well, you asked if something that's moral today, that was moral today would have been moral back then, and immoral today would have been immoral back then, and I agreed with you. But now you're bringing God into the equation, and what God does in a situation is different than what a human being does.
So God's morals are different?
Yeah, did God sexually assault the women, or who did it?
No, but God permitted a sexual assault. I'm sure that the assaulter wasn't seeking to do the will of God. He just did his own thing. But God
says he's causing it. Verse 11, he says, I will raise up trouble against you from within your own house, and I will take your wives before your eyes. So God is saying he's the one causing it.
Well, but that's only because God, in a sense, is causal of everything, because he either does it or permits it or allows it or helps it. But
well,
it just happened to
if God causes everything, that means there's no such thing as sin.
No, it means that when God does it, it's not sin, but when the person who he caused does it, it is sin.
So there's a different set of morals for God than there is for us.
not so much
That's what I heard.
different set for God.
Wait, does
God,
God have different morals than we do?
Oh, the moral law is something for man. It's something.
Right, but what I'm asking is, does God have a different moral law than we do?
No.
Oh, okay. So then it would be immoral for God to have women sexually assaulted too.
Well, what I'm saying is, when you see a causal statement, God says, I'm going to do this. It doesn't necessarily mean that God is going to directly, that God's going to command someone to do it. There's no statement in Samuel that he commanded it.
No, he says he's doing it. It says, I will raise up trouble against you. He's the one raising up the trouble. Absalom's the trouble.
That's only because everything that happens in the universe is either done by God, allowed by God, or helped by God. But it doesn't just happen by itself.
I mean, listen, that's an adorable cope. But if that's the case, then sin doesn't exist. That means God's causing everyone to sin. So I don't think that's the argument you want.
He's causing it by allowance. But interestingly enough, this is going far.
Oh, you don't cause it by allowance. Causation is a separate thing from allowance.
Well, on what basis? What's the canon of that logic? It's different.
Causation is not allowance.
Okay, so if I'm standing,
If I allow somebody to get in front of me in a line, I don't cause them to get in front of me in a line. There's a difference. I am permitting something, permitting something to do X. Now, if I allow somebody to borrow my car and they wreck it and cause an injury while doing that, I am not liable because I allowed them. I allowed them to use my car, but I did not cause the car accident. That's the difference. And so if you say God is allowing things, then when he could have prevented them, that's a whole different thing. So if I allow somebody to rob a bank, I am now culpable for that.
Yeah. So that's kind of the point. The problem is you and I are not presuming that there were a God. You and I are not God, and so there are many things that happen that they don't happen because we allow them. They happen because we don't really have any control one way or the other.
But God has ultimate control.
If I drown you in the water, I'm committing murder. But if I see you,
you caused it to happen.
I don't help you.
Yeah, one is you causing it, and one is you not doing anything about it. That's why the causing it is the problem.
Right, but if I let you drown right in front of me, and I don't try
in 2 Samuel 12, does God say I'm allowing it, or does he say I'm causing it?
Well, let's get the actual verse. Which one was it that you were?
I tell you, it's Hanani Mekim, which means, behold, I am causing to be raised up.
What
God says, I'm causing the trouble to be raised up.
What verse are you looking at?
2 Samuel 12:11.
Verse 11?
Mm-hmm. God's taking credit for it. He's happy about it. He's proud of it.
I think what's happening there, and again, this is a far cry from my original question, but I think what's happening there is that whereas all kinds of things happen in the world that you and I don't cause, we don't even allow them, we don't even know about them. If there is a God and if he's able to do anything, if he allows something when he could have stopped it, he's caused it.
Listen, Walter, saying the same bad argument over again doesn't make it better. So the word mechim in Hebrew is in the causative stem. It means the person who is doing it is causing it. That's what that means. That's why it's translated as God causing it to happen, because in the original text, it's literally in the first person causative form.
And so that Hebrew phrasing, when it involves human beings, there's a significant difference between causing and allowing. But when we're talking about God,
causing,
everything is caused.
Okay, then there's no such thing as sin. If God causes everything to happen, then he caused every sin that was ever committed.
He caused it by allowing it, yes.
No, I didn't say allow. I said cause.
I know you didn't say it, but I did.
I know you're trying to equivocate two words that aren't the same. I'm talking about causing something to happen, not allowing it. Do you agree that if you saw somebody sin, you didn't cause that sin?
Just by seeing it, yes, I agree.
Yeah, okay. So just by watching something happen, just by or even not stopping it, allowing it to play out, doesn't mean that you were the cause of that sin. The person who did the sin is necessarily the cause. Just like when God says, "I am raising up trouble against you," God is taking credit for it. Now you're just telling me you hate what God says. You hate the Bible. Why do you hate the Bible?
No, you're putting words in my mouth, and you're putting canons of logic in my mouth that don't exist either. The fact is, you're dealing with in terms of like in mathematics, when you have a set. If God exists, He's the only one in the set.
Oh boy, you're making it worse, not better.
Yeah, because that has absolutely nothing to do with what Justin's been talking to you about, because you're trying to make allow and cause into synonyms, and they aren't synonyms, and that's the problem. Justin is telling you what the Hebrew words are and where they come from and what they actually mean, and that you can't make allow and cause synonyms. You just can't do it. Otherwise, you're changing words to fit your particular belief, and that's bad logic.
I was ordained a minister in '85. I studied both Hebrew and Greek, and I'm very familiar with the language. But I'm also saying that God is unique.
Well, you should know.
God is the only one in the set. And so you and I, there's a huge difference between my causing and my allowing. But in God's case, even allowing is causing. The very fact that He created the world at all means that every.
I don't know how, Walter. How many times are you going to say the same bad talking point? It's like you're stuck on a loop. It's like you can't get out of the hamster wheel. You're stuck, buddy, going round and round saying the same thing. It didn't work the first 10 times. It's not going to work the 11th time. When God says, "I'm causing it to happen," the only mature thing to do is to admit that God is causing it to happen, because that's what He said.
All God is saying by that is He's saying that this event that you might see as a random event coming in the future, I have control over it, and I'm going to allow that to happen for my honor and glory. That's what He's saying.
But did He say that? Did He say, "I'm allowing it"?
Didn't use that word, but He's speaking.
Okay, so we'll try this again. It's a yes or no. Did He say, "I'm allowing it"?
He didn't use those words.
Yes or no? Did He say, "I'm allowing it"?
No.
Okay, what did He say? What were His actual words?
I'm causing it.
There you go. That means He's causing it. Anything other than that is lying on the book. God said, "I'm causing it." And you know how we know that God is causing it? Because it's a punishment. The punishment for somebody's actions, meaning had David not done it, this wouldn't have happened to his wives. The same reason why the child wouldn't have died. It was a punishment that God chose. He decided this is the punishment.
Right. But God didn't go and sexually assault anyone. God allowed someone else to commit a sin in a way that acted as a...
Doesn't matter. He caused it.
So we're just going to differ on the meaning of the word there, but it's not due to lack of Hebrew. And
no, we're not.
Differ on the meaning of what word? He says He causes it.
Okay, but by you saying it over and over again, you're in a hamster wheel too. So maybe we should get to my original question, which is
because I'm hoping eventually you'll be honest. Did God cause this event to happen? Yes or no?
What Lewis does in that book
was
I'm going to show.
Was it God's decision on whether or not this event would happen?
You know, Lewis says he's going to prove God without the Bible, and you insist on going to the Bible.
It's crazy that you can't actually pay attention. Would this event have happened if God didn't cause it?
You can't answer my question. I'm very sorry to hear that. I wish you
No one even heard your question, Walter, because we're waiting for you to stop running away from 2 Samuel. So would the raping of the 10 wives had happened if God didn't cause it?
There's nothing in the world that happens if God doesn't cause it, because God's the first cause.
Oh, then again, if that is your point, you're strictly a determinist and there's no such thing as sin. It was predetermined. You keep neutering your own religion. Why do you keep doing this? This is a horrible talking point.
Because when God causes a sin, that doesn't mean God sins.
Wait, I didn't say God sinned. That never left my mouth. I said, did God cause this event to happen?
Okay, and I agree, He did. But but you were trying to.
Okay, fantastic. So God caused this event to happen, which means God caused the punishment for David's sin to be the raping of 12 women, or 11, I'm sorry, 10 women. God caused something that you said was objectively immoral.
Right. I said it would be immoral for a person to do it. But God
you didn't say that. God caused a person to do it, which means it's immoral.
You asked me if morals are the same today, and I said yes. And then you gave a case.
Is Absalom a human being?
Yes, he was.
Did God cause Absalom to do what he did?
Only by allowance.
No, wrong again. The answer is yes. He did cause Absalom to do it. He says he's doing it.
Well, you can say it's wrong, but you're just saying it. And I can.
You are wrong. You already admitted it. You said that this event wouldn't have happened unless God caused it to happen. That means you know that it wouldn't have happened other than God's doing. And if Absalom was the instrument of the doing, that means God caused Absalom to do something horrific.
But if God caused Absalom to do something horrific, it's not the same as God doing something horrific himself.
I didn't say it was. And trust me, it is, because when God causes something to happen, you can't, like, I don't know if you're a Calvinist, but you're sounding quasi-Calvinist. Can you thwart God's will?
You can't thwart his final will, but you can certainly thwart.
So you can't, if you can't thwart God's will, can you make God wrong about what he knows in the future?
No.
Okay, so if you can't make God wrong about what he knows about the future, that means Absalom didn't have a choice. He had to rape those women.
Absalom did have a choice.
He didn't. God can't be wrong about what he knows. And God predicted it before it would happen, which means Absalom had no choice. It was determined.
Well, if God is able to know the future, some would say that means there can't be any free will. Just like if science can determine the future, some would say there can't be any free will.
No, I don't agree with that.
And your point's what?
I happen to think it's possible for God to know something will happen, and yet it's still someone's free choice to do it.
No, I disagree. I can know all things and not fall into predestination situation. God can't know all things without predestination, because God is the one who kicked everything off from the beginning of creation. He's the one who tweaked all the recipe parameters. He could have changed any recipe parameter he wanted to. He could have made like one wiggle of the nose and made it so that I would be a televangelist. He could have done that. That's something he could have done before he created anything. And he chose not to. He saw the future and said, yes, this is the future I want. That means everything in the God worldview is predetermined.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question. Do you believe in free will?
No, in fact, you don't either.
Well, I didn't ask what I did. I asked if you do.
I'm a little bit agnostic on whether or not we have freedom of choice, but I know for a fact we don't have free will. Like libertarian free will is not a thing.
How do you distinguish free will from free choice?
Well, libertarian free will just means that you are acting without any outside influences, meaning there's nothing that would influence my decision. But the reality is neither of us actually have that. Now, you might say we have freedom of choice, but I don't know if we really have freedom of choice. The jury's out in my world about determinism. I'm still trying to figure out if determinism is the best viewpoint for my position. But the reality is, in your worldview, everything is predetermined. Ephesians chapter 2 says so.
Well, a Calvinist interpretation of Ephesians 2 does. And I did start out as a Calvinist,
Right.
but I'm not anymore.
I mean, Ephesians 1, I apologize.
But that's fine.
And
But the only reason
do you know what the problem? Do you know what the problem with God determining everything is, from a moral point of view? Are you familiar with depraved indifference or depraved heart murder laws?
Yes, I am.
Well, if your God created a world in which he knew people would die and commit murder and do all of the things that we agree are immoral, isn't he then not moral because because we look at depraved heart and indifference as being wrong?
No, because again, God is the only one in a set. If there is a God, he's the only one.
That has nothing to do with it, right? God knows everything. God has the ability to change everything. And God is supposed to be benevolent, according to you. Therefore, when God started the universe, he started the universe to kill his own son.
No, I don't believe God has the ability to do anything. I don't believe God can make 2 + 2 = 5.
That's not what I mean. He can do everything that's logically possible. He's omnipotent. He can do anything that is logically possible.
Yeah.
So no, he can't square a circle, and he can't make a married bachelor, and he can't do any of those other nonsense things. But what he can do is create a universe where he doesn't have to kill his own son, and yet he didn't and had to kill his own son. Therefore, he created a universe to kill his own son.
If he wanted to create a universe where free will existed, then the results and fruit of free will.
So he's not omnipotent because he's limited by free will.
He limits himself by free will.
He's not omnipotent. And you're saying the only way he can change anything is through free will, except that we know that mental states are a thing. So we can tell up to almost 3 seconds before somebody's going to make a decision what they're going to make by looking at their mind. Therefore, everybody's mind is a knowable state. So means that God knows the state of all of our minds. He knows what will have us make certain choices and what won't. He knows what will allow some people to be serial killers and some people not. And he made a world where that's not possible. And he made a world where his son died. Therefore, he killed his own son.
So you're taking a different position than your partner on the issue of free will. You're saying that the jury's. He's kind of saying the jury's not in yet as to whether or not it exists. You're quite sure it doesn't exist.
That's what I'm saying. That's my opinion. I don't know if determinism is a view. My view on determinism isn't. I'm not speaking for Jim when I do this.
Right. And to be clear, if you have someone who is a serial killer generally has some sort of defect in the brain. So free will doesn't even enter it. In fact, you could make some psychologists may, and I don't know this for sure, may make the claim that it is not free will, that they don't have free will to not be a serial killer. But either way, it's a problem with the brain. It's physical. God knew that would happen. God is at least responsible for every serial killer. God knows every possible brain state. He knows what choices we're going to make and why, and created a universe knowing all of this where he had to kill his own son.
Well, first of all, I don't believe he killed his own son. He allowed his son to be killed by people.
Yeah, depraved indifference.
It was prophesied. It had to happen. Jesus said so. He said he had to get betrayed and handed over to fulfill the prophecy.
That's where God and us are different. Whereas you and I could be charged with depraved indifference in a court of law, God could be charged with depraved indifference for anything that ever happens anywhere because he knows everything.
Bingo.
Fucking A. We agree. Yeah.
Yes.
The buck stops at that serial killing maniac.
Yeah, you're right. God is not moral. There's your moral argument. It's dead on arrival because God is not moral. But you want to know why else it's dead on arrival? We can get into some science if you want.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I'm kind of curious as to why you guys don't want to address Lewis's argument. Perhaps neither one of you.
I do. Go ahead and give it. Give me the argument from top to bottom. We'll address it.
Well, he starts out with the fact that we seem to all have a sense of right and wrong, and then he tries to go through various theories as to what causes that, and he ends up saying that there is no real theory other than belief in God.
Yeah, so Lewis lived in the early 1900s. He didn't know what we know today about biology. And what we know today about biology is that behavior that we call moral exists all throughout nature, right? So scientists have taken rats and they've taught rats that if you do this, you get a reward. Then they taught the rat that if you do this, you get a reward and you'll harm this rat you don't know. 100% of the time, rats won't harm that other rat, even if they don't know him. something humans don't do. So in this one respect, rats are more moral than humans, right? Because they do the right thing every time. So that's a problem. Chimpanzees and dogs understand that if they do the same thing and don't get rewarded the same, they will get jealous. They understand that is not fair. So we see moral behavior there. We see moral behavior in everywhere, right? And so we even see more the beginnings. I won't say very beginnings of moral behavior in bacteria, where two strains of bacteria will cooperate. One will decide to cheat, and if the other one detects it, they will stop cooperating with them. It's really, really basic, and I hesitate to even call it morals because it's kind of just the basics. But we see this throughout nature, and the reason we see it throughout nature is because cooperation is a survival strategy, and if organisms are going to cooperate, they have to have a certain set of rules. They have to be able to trust each other. That's where morals come from. So he was completely wrong, and what he knew then is not what we know today about behavior across the spectrum. That's the problem.
Well, first of all, I think you're anthropomorphizing animals.
Nope. Like I said, you go, I could actually provide you the research if you give me a couple minutes. But the rats research, there's a research on not chimpanzees, it's another monkey, and the understanding of fairness. You can do, if you have two dogs, get them to do the same thing, give one a better reward than the other, see what happens. They've studied meerkats. Meerkats will, in many cases, make a loud noise to warn somebody of predators. Some people think that actually will attract predators and make them more liable, but since they're the first ones to see it, they may have gone in. But we see behavior that we would call moral everywhere, and that's not anthropomorphizing animals by any stretch of the imagination. That's just behavior that we see. I mean, what else would you call it when a rat refuses to be rewarded for causing harm to another rat? Is that moral behavior? What would you call that behavior?
I would just call it behavior. I don't know what to call it because I can't get inside a rat and know how a rat thinks.
Who cares? I mean, humans do the same thing. Does it matter what they think?
Well, let me just, for sake of argument, say that your argument's correct. Lewis does address that. You're saying he didn't address it, they didn't know that. He definitely addresses the cooperation theory, the theory that the so-called moral law is not divine, but it's just that we've learned as a society that it makes more sense to behave in certain ways. He addresses that argument. But the problem is then you end up with something like, if that's all just a very complex form of survival of the fittest, then what about somebody who willingly gives up their life to save someone else? That makes no sense in a survival of the fittest context.
Actually, so I think you're using survival of the fittest incorrectly. Fittest does not mean someone who can go and do CrossFit or anything about physical fitness. It does mean about adaptability to their environment. So it's a fitting into the environment. But yes, actually, we will see, dogs have sacrificed themselves for humans before. They've sacrificed themselves, sheepdogs, throw themselves in front of wolves. So to say that we don't see that and that's not moral behavior, that doesn't make any sense to me. So we see that behavior in animals. So again, doesn't address it.
I don't know what an animal thinks, but I know that with a human being, if I was absolutely convinced that this life is all there is, that there's nothing afterwards, and that giving my life is giving up the only thing I have, I don't see how I'd have any justification to give my life to save somebody else.
Well, yeah, so because you lack empathy, atheists don't.
Right. And the other problem that you have, not only is there an empathy issue there, but if you go and talk to people who have risked their lives, with the exception of first responders who train for it and plan on doing that, people who do it spontaneously, the first thing out of their mouth is, I didn't even think about the risk. I just went and did it. So in those cases, they're also not thinking. So again, the state of mind doesn't make any difference. You're assuming that humans reason all the time, and that's an assumption you really shouldn't make, because we're pattern recognition machines. We're not logical engines by any stretch of the imagination.
When I said survival of the fittest, I wasn't talking about physical fitness. I was talking about the fact that the whole concept of evolution is that the type of behavior that dies out, that doesn't evolve its way through, dies out. And the part that doesn't die out is the part that has survival value. But there is no survival value to giving your life.
Well, so
sacrifice,
again,
yeah, there is, because we survive as a species, not as an individual.
right. And we see that dogs will sacrifice their lives and risk their lives to save humans and sheep and other dogs. We see this in behavior in other animals. So to say this is exclusive to humans is not the case. There is no behavior we humans do that we don't also see in other animals to one degree or another.
Well, that would be a whole other point that would take a while to follow through. But basically, I think that whatever animals do or don't think, we think. We're capable of thinking. And
we don't do it all the time. Yeah, we don't think all the time. Sure. Right? Because we're pattern recognition engines, right? So there's a part of our brain that does just that. But when we actually try and think, let me back up. If I say 2 + 2 equals and you say 4, you didn't do the math, your brain recognized the pattern and came up with the answer. Now, if I say what is 5 billion times 3 billion, well, that's easier. You're still going to say 15 billion because you're going to recognize that pattern. What's the square root of 5,532? Now you're going to actually have to think about it. Thinking is a high energy thing, which is why we don't always do it. And we also know that humans will sacrifice themselves without thinking, because we know this from people who have rescued others, who have come back and survived it and said, I didn't even think about the danger, I just did it. So again, the thought process has nothing to do with this.
Right, but I'm now talking about a situation where there is a thought process, where you're not doing something instinctively. And
okay.
When you say that survival of the fittest can involve being willing to give up oneself for survival of the species, I say that makes no sense in an atheistic context. Because
sure does. It's basic evolution. What are you talking about? It's basic evolution, dude.
Yeah, are you telling me that atheists, to be sure, Walter, I would die for my child in a second. There's nothing I wouldn't do for my child, even if that meant giving my life for my child. That directly allows my child to continue living when the parent has that biological factor built in that allows them to self-sacrifice for their own children. It's wired into us because it helps us survive.
So you think that if you would sacrifice for your child, it's just because it's wired into you?
I think that's part of it. Yeah, I think a lot of our behaviors are developed through evolution.
But you don't think it's a moral thing. So let's say if you sacrifice yourself for your child and some other father says, forget it, I'll let the child go and I'll look out for number one. You don't think your behavior is more moral than that person's?
Well, I would subjectively disagree with them. I would say I don't agree with that opinion, but I don't believe in objective morals, which is actually the end point of the conversation you want to get to. You want to use C.S. Lewis's argument for objective morals, but I know for a fact that you can't demonstrate that objective morals exist.
But then, so when you say that you would, in a second, give your life for your child, that's not objectively right. That just happens to be your choice.
That's my decision.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
it's a behavior we call moral, right? There's no such thing as morals. There's behavior we call moral, and there's behavior we call immoral. But it's just behavior. Because as soon as you take that behavior, that willingness for a parent to sacrifice his child, and we apply it to any other animal that does the same thing, you're going to say that doesn't count. And the only difference is humans doing it versus animals doing it. And so that's the exception you're making.
I think the difference is that animals are doing it by instinct, and human beings are making a choice.
Well, again, now you made that point before, and I've already beaten that point to death, right? Not everybody thinks, and mental states don't matter. What matters is the behavior.
Yeah, it's clearly a combination of like evolutionary instincts and maybe a little bit of thought processing. But for most people, like I wouldn't think about it. Like if my child was in danger, I wouldn't be thinking, oh, should I do this thing for my child? No, I'm just gonna go do it. It's just wired into me.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that, by the way, but I know that I do. But let me ask you a better question because I feel like we're going round and round on this particular point, and I don't think it's gonna lead us anywhere. Walter, do you have an argument that would end in morals being objective?
I would, yeah, I could say yes to that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the argument.
Well, I think he presents the argument. Again, I just think he does it. I can do it fairly well, but I think he does it a lot better. He presents the argument that we all, have a sense of some kind of a moral law because we hold each other accountable. And we don't then say, oh, to hell with your moral law. We say that wasn't fair, you cheated, that wasn't right, why did you take my seat, why did you step on my foot? And we
But
don't
what
say,
has that
oh,
to do
because
with objective morals?
yeah. In other words, it's subjective. And he even points out in the book that if I step on your toe accidentally, you're going to make allowance for that. But it's very different than if I step on your toe deliberately. And so
Yeah, but what about what about that requires objective morals? That's what I'm asking.
What about the what?
What about any of that requires objective morals to exist?
Oh, because we all have a sense that that's right and that's wrong, and it's not just purely subjective. We don't,
No, it is
take a
subjective.
vote and say,
Yeah.
It's entirely subjective.
Have you ever watched Dogs at Play?
yes.
And have you ever noticed that when a dog accidentally does something to cause harm to another dog, that that there's behavior that is apologetic?
Well, I see behavior that anthropomorphically looks apologetic, but
No,
I
it
think
is apologetic. Go talk to a dog behaviorist. They'll tell you it's apologetic. They're apologizing. They're making sure the other dog knows it was an accident.
Dog behavior.
Horses do the same thing.
But you're just observing behavior, but you're not a dog, so you don't know how they really think.
That's entirely my point. The behavior is what we call moral. There's nothing as moral. There's only behavior, right? You're cutting out the special case for humans that humans are doing something, but animals do it too. So you can't carve out these objective morals that humans do without also addressing the same behavior in other animals.
Well, I guess I'll just ask you one question, and maybe you don't have the same answer, but do both of you believe that morals are completely subjective?
Yeah.
Yes.
Until someone can demonstrate that they're objective, that's the default position. The default position is that they're subjective until proven otherwise.
Okay, so here's the thing. When you just said a few minutes ago that, you would, in a second, you'd give your life for your child, I wanted to say, well, I commend that. I really approve of that. But if someone else said, well, I don't think that at all, I'd easily give up my child, I'd say, well, I don't approve of that. Now, is that purely a value judgment?
Yeah, that's my opinion. That's why morals are subjective, because we can't agree on what is properly moral as a species. For example, almost all of human history, mankind and their gods were okay with slavery, and now we're not. Your God, the God in your book, said to do slavery, said that women would be permanent slaves, that you can make slaves of the heathen nations around you. But we agree now that that's not something we should be doing. So that tells me that morals are in fact subjective, because people back then didn't see the problem, but we see it now.
Right. Except God never commands slavery; He regulates it.
No, He commands it. Want me to show you where?
Sure.
I'll never understand why pastors get up here and lie on their own book. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she shall not go out as the male slaves do. This is preceded by a passage. This is preceded by a passage about male Hebrew slaves, is it not?
Didn't it start by saying when a man sells his daughter? Is that what you said?
When a man sells his daughter as a slave, and then the clause, she shall not go out as the male slaves do. So God could have said, when a man sells his daughter as a slave, she goes free the same as the male slaves do. He didn't say that. He says, when a man sells his daughter, she doesn't go free.
But what I'm saying is, regardless of the male-female, that's a whole other subject. But God doesn't say, you shall have slaves. He says, while you're having slavery, do it this way.
I didn't say he commanded you like you had to have slaves. That's entirely not what my claim was. My God, the God in your book does in fact instruct you to make slaves, though. And the way that you do it is by telling them, when you sell your daughter as a slave, make her a permanent slave. That's God instructing to make slaves. Same thing with verse 4 in the same chapter. It says, if a master gives him a wife, referring to the Hebrew, if a master gives him a wife and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her masters, and he shall go out alone. But if the slave declares, I love my master, so on and so forth. So in verse 4, he's literally saying, if a Hebrew man comes in and you give him a wife while he's enslaved, and then he leaves, he doesn't get to take those kids with him or the women. They're still property. They're still property forever of the owner. He could have said anything else. He could have said, no. Treat them the same way you would a Hebrew male. Let them go free. But he didn't say that. He said to do the opposite of that.
But my only point was that God is not at any point commanding slavery. He's regulating an existing institution.
No, he commanded it.
Why would God allow something that's evil? Why would God allow something that's evil?
Because if he didn't allow something that's evil, he wouldn't have created free will and he wouldn't have created us.
No, he just we have laws. So you're saying that the laws we have against slavery violate free will?
No.
Oh
shit! We're violating free will right now. I wasn't aware of that.
Well, he just said no. So why couldn't God have just said don't own slaves as a law? Instead of making laws about how to regulate slavery. And yes, it's chattel slavery. If you're going to go there, don't.
I guess, God could have had a law about absolutely everything, but instead he regulated the human condition that already had a lot of...
he didn't regulate it. What did he regulate? Name one thing he said that you can't do that they would have been doing otherwise in regards to slavery.
He said the verse, and you didn't give me the verse, so I didn't find it, but
it says 21:4. You're a pastor. You should know. If you don't know who this is, you shouldn't have been in the pulpit.
If you just quote a verse, there's very few pastors on earth that can take any verse and tell you exactly where it came from without you giving me a reference.
I tell you, should be pretty damn sure at least what chapter it came from. You're a pastor. Slavery comes up. You're going to get asked.
Okay. Well, you can go that route if you want, but the fact is, when you start a sentence with "when a man sells his daughter," God is not commanding anything. He's saying there's this thing that's already happening. A man selling his daughter.
Right, and you've already said that slavery doesn't violate free will, and God could have created a law against slavery. And here he's giving a law on what to do with slaves.
Okay, so just to be clear, in the context we're speaking of, a slave is somebody who doesn't go free. An indentured servant gets to go free, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so when it says when a man sells his daughter as a slave, her default position, if she's a Hebrew, is already as an indentured servant. So the next thing he says is, she shall not go out as the male slaves do. That's a command to take her from indentured servant to a slave. God's command is to not let her be an indentured servant, make her a slave.
I'd have to look at that more closely, especially because I still don't have the reference.
Which is, I just told you, Exodus 21:7, and then he goes on in the same chapter and says, you can beat your slaves so severely that if they accidentally die a couple of days later, you're not going to get punished for it.
And some versions of that translation say, for they are your property, and other translations say, for they are your money. I like because they are your money one rather than the property one, but...
That is the literal, it's kesef in Hebrew, which just means silver or money.
Oh, wow. So, okay. So the correct translation is they are your money. Excellent. because that's my favorite interpretation, because it makes it really, really clear that slaves are chattel slavery.
Yeah. And he commands the Israelites in Leviticus 25 not to make slaves of their own Hebrew male brethren. Why couldn't he have made the same claim for non-Hebrews?
But let me ask you a question. So you're asking why God is doing
It's crazy that you think
things.
you're going to answer a question with a question. You can ask whatever question you want to after you answer mine. In Leviticus 29, 39 through 43, he explicitly tells the Israelites not to make slaves permanently of your own Hebrew brethren, and to let them go free at the year of Jubilee. Only the men and only the Hebrews. And then he goes on and says you can make permanent slaves of the foreigners. So he's already laying down rules saying don't enslave these people. Then he says, but you can enslave these people. What was preventing him from just saying, hey, listen, treat everybody the same way you would treat a Hebrew male. Don't enslave them perpetually. Let them serve for 7 years and then they can go free.
He was making a distinction between the way he treated the Hebrews and the way he treated others, because they were his chosen people.
Yeah. They were his slaves. He says it in Leviticus 25, you won't make your own Hebrew brethren your slaves because they are my slaves who I brought out of Egypt. So God's jealous someone's taking his slave. This is a property dispute. That's all it is. He doesn't care if the Israelites own other people as slaves.
Oh, here's an interesting thing. You're saying that morals are relative, that morals are subjective, but yet you're making moral judgments about God and saying God did things that were immoral.
There we go.
And yet there's no.
We finally got there. I knew you'd figure it out, Walter. Thank you. So this is called an internal critique, right? We start with the fact that you think slavery is wrong and you think morals are objective. I started this conversation by saying that morals are subjective. I'm sorry, you think they're objective. I think they're subjective. And the proof that they're subjective is that people back then thought that slavery was chill, and people today don't think that slavery is chill. I'm on the side that doesn't think that slavery is chill, which proves morals are subjective, not objective. But if they are objective, you've got a problem because your God said to do slavery, and you think slavery is wrong.
Except that you left out another possibility.
I'm all ears.
Okay. And, you know, the thing is, I'm watching this on YouTube, and there's a delay, so I've got the sound down, but I'm watching you, but you're not speaking in terms of the words. The other reason to look at it is that slavery. I'm against slavery, but I'm not against it for moral reasons. I'm against it for technological reasons.
So you don't think that slavery was morally wrong?
I don't think it was ever morally wrong. But I'm all in favor of abolition because I think. Do you know what I think was the ultimate cause of the downfall of slavery? The invention of the printing press.
The invention of the printing press.
Took a long time to catch up,
Pardon me, I thought it was the motherfuckers out here trying to end it. That's what I thought it was. All along, all we needed was a printing press. That's crazy.
No, it's very simple.
All right.
You've got a world where there's the haves and have-nots because some people can read and some people can't. You're going to have a slave class. But when you have a world where everybody has the ability to read and that's a leveling process. I think that the printing press was an inherent leveling process, and it just took a while to catch up and give us abolition. We had it in England before we had it in the United States.
Yeah, because everyone could read. Yeah, that's what happened.
It still sounds like you're making a moral argument, Tal, right? Because you're still saying that slavery was wrong, and you're just saying that we had slavery because education was different back then than it is now, and so now it's immoral to enslave educated people.
I'm not saying it was ever wrong. I'm just.
But you're saying it's wrong now. That's my point. Is you are in fact saying it's wrong.
I'm saying it's pragmatically inexpedient. That's why I'm all in favor of abolition. I'm glad we had it.
Pragmatic for what?
Right. So we should go and find people on the planet who are uneducated and enslave them. That you're saying that is okay.
No, I think it's much better to teach them to read instead and let them use the printing.
Why?
But would it be wrong in your worldview? Would it be wrong if we owned slaves?
I don't think it's morally wrong. I just think it's.
Okay.
I don't think it's necessary, and I'm in favor of having legislation against it.
Because everything that God commands is permissible, right?
Everything that God commands is permissible. Yes.
Right, yeah. So like if God said like you can go and execute these infants, it would be good to obey God.
I don't believe he would, but yes.
I didn't ask you if he would. First of all, we know he would. 1 Samuel 15:3 says so. Deuteronomy chapter 12 says so as well. Chapter 20, I'm sorry, says so as well. So we know he would. Okay, so if God did tell you then, he said, Walter, I need you to go and burn down this orphanage over here, it would be good to obey God?
He wouldn't, but yes, it would be good if he did.
Okay. And if God said, Walter, I need you, before you burn down the orphanage, to take the children out of the orphanage, put them through a meat grinder, and make yourself some nice burger patties for dinner, that would be the right thing to do?
No, he wouldn't say that because that would contradict.
I didn't say he would. I said if he did, would it be the right thing to do?
You're trying to make me a theological voluntarist, and I'm not.
No, I'm not. I'm saying if God, in fact, commanded you to do something, would it be good to obey? Because in your worldview, there's no limit. If God told you to do anything, it's always good to obey, isn't it?
If God told me to do something, he'd do it. He'd tell me to do it because it's in accordance with his nature, which is good.
Right. So it would be good to obey him and make baby burger patties, right?
He wouldn't do that. That opposes everything.
I didn't ask if he would. I never asked if he would. I said if he did.
I think that's a question like, can 2 + 2 = 5? I think it's
Listen, Walter, it's not, because God tells the Israelites he's going to cause them to cannibalize their own children. He says it on 3 different occasions, and he makes it happen. It's recorded in Lamentations and Jeremiah. So God will absolutely make you make baby burger patties. I'm asking you, if God commanded you to make the baby burger patties, would it be good to do it?
That's the allowance thing again. He never commands them to cannibalize.
Well, try, Walter, focus. I know you're terrified of answering the question, but try to stay on track. If God told you to make baby burger patties, would it be right to do it?
He wouldn't do it. I can't answer the question.
I didn't ask you if he would. It's a hypothetical. All of a sudden, you're real sheepish about hypotheticals. If God told you to make the baby burger patties, logically, is it entailed that it would be good to obey?
You don't want me to answer a question with a question, but if you can answer,
it's a yes or no. It's a yes or no. I need a yes or no out of you. Let me try it with Jim. Jim, if God told you to make baby burger patties, do you think it would be good to do?
Absolutely no way under any circumstances would it be good to do that.
That was easy because he's got subjective morals. He doesn't have divine command theory. You've got divine command theory. So we'll try this again. If God told you to make baby burger patties, would it be right to obey him?
It's a non-question, so I can't answer it.
It's a real question. You can't answer it. We need you to take your tail out from between your legs and grow a backbone. Be a man now and answer the question. If God told you to make baby burger patties, would it be right to obey him?
You usually stoop to insulting when your logic gets weak.
He can't help himself. He's terrified. He's terrified of a hypothetical.
And I don't understand why he's terrified. It's not like you're laying a trap for him.
I'm certainly not laying a trap for him. I'm just showing him the logical conclusion of divine command theory. That's it.
Yeah. That is the logical conclusion that you're assuming. So you're making a couple of assumptions here, because unless you're going to say that when God flooded the planet, that babies didn't die, God killed babies, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so killing babies is okay for God to do. Why is it not good for humans to do? If everything God does is good.
God is the only one in a set, and if you or I kill somebody, we've completely lost contact with that person.
You have one set of morals for God and one set of morals for humans. That's what you're saying. Therefore, there is no objective morals. because objective morals would exist outside of any type of brain. That includes God's. So there are no objective morals. So you've destroyed your own moral argument.
I don't think so.
So where's the objective morals if there's one set of morals for God and one set of morals for humans? Where's the objectivity in that?
If God is the one who creates the moral law, it's a little different than
Nope, it's God's opinion at that point.
See, when you're dealing with God and life and death, it's very different because you and I.
When you're dealing with the word objective, it means it applies outside of a mind, including God's.
Would it be wrong for me to move someone from one side of a door to the other?
Objectively or subjectively?
I have absolutely no idea because I don't know what the circumstances are, because trying to figure out what morals are often complicated because there are gray areas. It is not always wrong to kill somebody, for instance, even though you may get charged with murder.
For God to move someone from life to death is just moving them from one room into another. So he's in a different situation. So it's not that morals are subjective, it's that he's in a different situation than we are.
Oh, so God can kill people but when people kill people, we're not moving them from one door to the other?
Apparently Walter's pro-abortion now. Thanks for letting us know.
We're moving them completely outside of our realm. That's why we're commanded not to do it.
But we're just moving them from we're doing the same thing God's doing. When God kills, he moves them from one side to the other. When we kill, we move them from one side to the other. It's the same behavior.
When he does it, he's able to watch over them on both sides of the door. We're not.
So he's not able to watch over people on both sides of the door if we kill somebody.
That's not what I said. I said we're not able to.
This is a problem with your objective morals, is you end up with morals for God and morals for humans, and so morals can't exist outside of a human mind or outside of a mind, period. Whether it's God's or humans or dogs makes no difference. In order for something to be objective, it has to exist outside of a mind. And you don't have morals that do it because and that's exactly what you're doing when you say God has morals that we don't, when God can do things that we can't. You're saying that there are no objective morals, that everything is subjective to God.
You made your own definition of objective morals. You said
No, I'm using the correct definition for objective.
Walter's connection give out?
I don't know. I still show him is on call in studio. Do you?
Says he's there.
Did he mute himself?
He might have. Maybe Lord finally got embarrassed with the conversation and took him.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with the moral argument, right? Is you can't. Looks like he just dropped. Not sure why.
Yep. I took care of it. So we've got time for one more caller. I'm going to read some super chats real quick. Also remember, on any baby paste edible example, Jeremiah 19:9 is clear. God says, I will make them eat the flesh of their sons and their daughters. God is more than happy to cause people to cannibalize their children. So yeah, saying God wouldn't tell me to do it just means you haven't read your book. It's okay. We're used to it. Christians don't read this thing.
Got Mike from another person from South Carolina. That's my home state. No pronouns given. Currently, the question is, what is the greatest threat or treat? It says treat. I guess that's a typo. Threat to separation of church and state. So let's ask Mike. Mike, do I have it right? Is it threat or treat for separation of church and state?
Maybe you got a retype there. Mine says threat.
Threat. Okay.
Sounds better, maybe. I don't know. I am curious what your motivation is. That's something that you said cross-examine was one of the reasons you're here. I always wonder why you guys show up to do all these, video things. It's tough enough for me to try and catch up with y'all every other week or something, and yet you're here all the time. So I'm wondering, I'm asking what your motivation is, more or less. But you said one of the problems with Christianity was you thought it was a threat to separation of church and state. If you could expand on that.
Well, I don't find that to be a problem with Christianity generally. I find it to be a threat with Christian nationalism, and that is distinct from Christianity. So Christians would encompass everybody who, whatever definition you want, is a Christian, and that varies from Christian to Christian. Christian nationalism is a subset of Christians who believe that they should, and they're morally, if not empowered to do so, almost compelled to take over the levers of state and use it to bring about a Christian theocratic government. One where Christianity is taught as the truth in public schools, one where Christianity is the justification for public policy. If you imagine a world in which you can be convicted of violating the statute called Leviticus 21 as a crime, that would be sort of a Christian nationalist state. So Christian nationalists are the problem, not Christians. Does that make my position clear?
Yeah, that's interesting. How do you know when you've got a Christian nationalist on your hands?
Because they say, I think we should take over the levers of state and make this a Christian nation.
But, this is founded on Christianity. When you talk about Leviticus, you're talking about people that want to bring back old school stoning everybody. Is that it? Or
there's a spectrum. I want to go back to something you just said. This is all founded on Christianity. I didn't understand that.
As far as the country, but before we answer that, you're concerned about them bringing back Old Testament punishments. Is that the concern, or?
No, I think I explained it before. I want to use the levers of the state to make Christianity the official religion of the government, to teach Christianity as truth into schools of public school children, to favor Christians in public dealing with the government. All of these things are part of Christian nationalism. Basically a theocracy. If you imagine the best and worst parts of theocratic governments throughout history and in our current time, that is what you're dealing with Christian nationalists.
I have never met anybody that wants Christianity to be the religion, because the Church of England is what we came from. And it's a disaster, by the way. It's throwing out the real Christians right now. The Church of England is in England. But I don't know anybody that wants Christianity.
The real Christians? What are real Christians?
Religion is just going to get. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What are real Christians? You said the Church of England is throwing out real Christians. Who are the real Christians? Are you the real Christian?
Real Christians are. That's a fair question. Real Christians are Christians that adhere to the Bible as far as Jesus, following his teachings. And then, they're not the ones.
Catholic Church would disagree. The Catholic Church, the people that gave you the Bible would say you need tradition and Bible.
Well, the Catholic Church did give us the Bible. They were teaching in Latin and trying to keep everybody confused for.
That's irrelevant. No, address the question. I don't want you to dodge this one. This is very important. You are asserting, ostensibly, that you know what a true Christian is. And every time I've talked with somebody like that, it ends up in a spot of either no true Scotsman or moving the goalposts or defining a circle that other people wouldn't agree with that appear to share the same faith. So let's talk about this. What do you mean by true Christian? You said adhere to the Bible. What do you mean?
People that follow Jesus and believe that Jesus is God in the flesh. And they follow his teachings.
You say follow teachings. That's a fuzzy word. What do you mean by follow teachings?
Well, Jesus says to, forgive not just 7 times, but 7 times 70. When Jesus says, I'm the way.
These are examples of things Jesus said, but what I'm asking you about is what do you mean when you say follow Jesus? You are talking about some verb thing that a human today would do, what would they do? Follow certain instructions that you think came from Jesus that are listed in the Bible, or just believe that Jesus was the Son of God and that belief in him is enough to follow him? What do you mean by follow Jesus?
I think you just nailed it. Yeah, just somebody who believes that Jesus is the Son of God, and if you don't follow him, then you're not a Christian. You're just kind of reading the Bible.
So if somebody believes that Jesus was the Son of God, that means they're a true Christian.
That's part of it, yes.
But not the whole?
I mean, Satan believes that Jesus is the Son of God. So yeah, there's a big audience that believes he's the Son of God. But believing it and following it, there's that.
Okay, so we're back at following. So now the definition you gave for following is distinct from following. So I'm trying to nail down what you mean, because this is very important. So one element appears, but not every element, appears to be believing that Jesus is the Son of God. What else is on the checklist of what I have to do to be a true Christian?
Man, I know you're a lawyer and this is your thing, but I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, we can fill in the gaps. I don't want to get into how there's 40,000 different Christian denominations. I think that's it, is asking Jesus to forgive you of your sins and then following Jesus with the rest of your life. Repent and then go sin no more if you can, but everybody does. That's what being a Christian is.
To be clear, I'm not doing lawyerly things. I'm just doing logical things. I'm just trying to understand. You made a claim. You had this throwaway line of real Christians or true Christians, and that's a big, heavy statement. So you don't get to throw that out without us asking questions. So I'm sure, Justin, you run into this all the time. The checklists I've heard are: accept that Jesus is the Son of God, checklist item 1. Maybe people will add on that believe in the afterlife or repent of your sins. That might be another thing on the checklist. But my understanding is this checklist is a 2,000-year-old debate and nobody agrees. Is my understanding correct, Justin?
Yeah, that is.
Is that an understatement?
That is the case. Even the early church had to fight it out.
Gotcha. So what are the categories that you would use, Justin? Like where would you want to go with this definitional thing? Because I think we have to define this first before we can then go back to Christian nationalism, because I don't want to get into a state of saying, well, it's not Christian nationalism because the people who are doing it are not true Christians. We need to define true Christians first. And then maybe I'll say, okay, it's not Christian nationalism, it's fake Christian nationalism, but it's still a problem.
Right. I would just refer to this as semantic fog. It doesn't actually do anything for any argument. All it does is try to muddy the waters to prevent you from getting to some sort of logical conclusion. The reality is, if you just say, here's what Christianity in general does, and I'm not going to distinguish between you, the only real Christian alive, and the other Christians. I'm going to say, here are Christians. They fit the mold of Christianity. They fit Romans 10:9 and 10. They've confessed with their mouth and they believe in their heart that Jesus Christ is Lord and he was raised from the dead and he died for their sins. They believe that stuff. That makes them a Christian. And you can argue all day about how you don't like the fact that one group requires water baptism, another group doesn't require water baptism. But the reality is, the bare minimum requirement to be a Christian is that you repent of your sins and then you confess Jesus Christ. That's the bare minimum. If you've done that, I'm willing to call you a Christian, even if I disagree with some of your secondary and tertiary opinions.
Is that fair, Mike? Is that a fair definition for you for us to move forward?
Yeah, I think that is fair.
Okay, so using that definition, anybody who's trying to make that the official policy of any branch of the government or give favor to people who claim to believe those things, that would be Christian nationalism. And then you said, I've never met anybody that wants that. Well, you're very lucky. I think you've seen them on TV. You've heard of Project 2025. You've seen Donald Trump. You've heard of Ron DeSantis. You've heard of all these people who, and I can't go on beyond that, but you've heard of all these people. We are a charity and we can't get into electioneering. They're not running for office right now. I opened this show with an example of Christian nationalism, people trying to, with 1,000 cuts, do away with the First Amendment separation of church and state, hiring chaplains of the Christian faith, not hiring in Florida. They made them volunteers so they could avoid one type of lawsuit. Volunteers, and allowing them to come into public schools and preach to kids about the truth of Christian claims. That is the government teaching its children that Christianity is true. That is a step along the way to a theocracy. Do you think that that's problematic?
I think you're reaching. You're trying to say if somebody has an opinion or they are a Christian, then they absolutely positively can't say anything about it. It's supposed to be, the government is not supposed to advocate a certain type of religion. Could be Christianity, could be Muslim, or they're not supposed to deter you from doing it either. So
I've got a story for you about your it could be Muslim thing, right? Hold on a second. I want to get back to that, but I want to address the point you just made before we forget about it. So this is what the Christian nationalists will say. We've just created a statute that is agnostic as to what faith, but it will be faith-based, right? So it's not that you can hire a bunch of atheist pastors or get atheist volunteers to come in and teach the atheistic point of view, right? It is just any chaplain of any faith. That's the claim. That's how they write the law. They did that in Australia in 2011. The Australian population at that time was about 65% Christian. And they made the same claims then. This is not about Christianity. This is about counseling and faith-based stuff and all of that. I'll give you one guess as to what percentage years later, after they'd hired all of these chaplains or accepted them as volunteers, keeping in mind that the population of Australia was 65% Christian, what percentage of the chaplains were in schools were Christian? Do you have any idea what that number was?
I have no idea.
97%.
I don't know where you're going with this. So
where I'm going is what I hear time and time again is you're being alarmist. That's a categorical error. This is not Christian nationalism. This is just one local law. Because it's any faith could be a chaplain, therefore it's not Christian nationalism. This is all cover, and it is documented time and time again throughout history, and Australia is a very good analog. They have a very conservative part of their population. They are very independent, like the United States. They still have that sort of frontiersman attitude. They made all the same promises that the people in Texas, the people in Florida, the people in Oklahoma are making as to why we should allow chaplains in schools. They swore it would be multi-denominational, and then after the law was passed, the rubber on the road, the people pulling the levers, made it a basically uniform all Christian chaplaincy preaching to kids in their schools, in government schools. That is against what the founding fathers wanted. They explicitly made a law before the Constitution even existed in Virginia to fight this sort of shit. And then they embodied that law, the Bill for Religious Freedom and for the Virginia colony, into the First Amendment. And ever since then, Christians who want government to force religion down their citizens' throats have been trying to get away with these sorts of things. And it is only since the current Supreme Court came into power due to Mitch McConnell's shenanigans that they are now getting what they want. They are getting a death by 1,000 cuts of the First Amendment for this exact purpose. To put it another way, if they didn't want the government involved, they wouldn't be doing any of this, but they are. That's my point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can't. I can think of a million things that'd be a lot worse than this. Somebody talking about the Bible, but to your original point, in Australia, they passed this law and said they could have people talking about religion. And
let's clarify, you're softening this. This is not people talking about religion. These are pastors, explicitly chaplains, hired or volunteering to give counseling to students who need counseling instead of trained counselors. Here's an anecdote from Australia. A girl who was suffering from an eating disorder went to her chaplain because it was the only counselor available. And you know what he told her? You're just hungry for the Lord. That's the counseling she got. That is one story out of a million. There's a whole bunch of papers in Australia about this. When the rubber meets the road, this is what happens. And the reason we have laws against even letting it start happen is because eons of experience have shown to us that when you let it creep in a little, if you give a definitional excuse for it to happen, all of a sudden the doors are wide open, everybody runs in and starts. It's like cigarette companies marketing to kids. They know they want to get them early. The National Association for School Chaplains is in their mission statement says, we want to get people into schools so we can convert them to being Christians. This is not a mystery. We want the power of the school letting us trap a captive audience and preach to them about the truth of Jesus. This is not people talking about the Bible in an academic sense. I am all for a comparative religions class in public schools. I think the Bible should be in schools in those contexts. Let's read the Bible. Let's read the Quran. Let's read any text and compare and contrast with poetry and with other mythology. That's great, but that's not what this is. This is, you're a kid in distress. You would go see a counselor, but instead you're going to Pastor Jack, who's going to tell you you're just hungry from the Lord and you need to pray to Jesus. That's what's happening in the schools. After Australia did this, years after, STDs in schools went up, teen pregnancies went up, and it was all because the pastors were discouraging the kids from sex education, safe sex, all of those things. You can't deny what happens on the ground when you let this stuff into the door.
A couple things on the STDs and all that. You sure about that? You got your data on that? That it was the only mitigating?
I'll give it to you. Let's say that never happened. Continue. I don't have it at my fingertips. That's what I remember from my research. I did a whole episode on this, but I might be wrong on some facts. Continue.
Sure, I can see something changes, and then there's unintended side effects, sure, but I mean, it'd be nice to prove it. All
right, if you're going to throw away these sentences, let's go back to the South. What is the cause and effect here? The more religious a state is in the United States, the higher the STD rates, the higher drug addiction rates, the higher divorce rates, the higher the teen pregnancies rates. Every measure of health is lower. Now, I am readily going to admit we don't know which way the causation arrow goes, but I do know it's been that way since pre-Civil War, that everywhere we look in the world, every country, every world, where we keep religion out of schools, where we teach good health, where we teach science, where we teach sex ed, all of those metrics get better. So let's not throw away these little lines about, well, maybe this one stat's wrong, maybe that one stat's wrong. We know what's happening. The conservative Christian movement for decades has openly said we want to put Jesus back in schools. We want the power of the government, which in the 60s we were forced to retreat from because we used to read Christian pairs in schools and tell people that they need to be Christian in schools. And the Supreme Court told us we couldn't do that. They have been working for decades to change that, and they have now done so, and they are putting chaplains in school who are going to do exactly what happened in Australia. And if you don't accept that, then you're either naive or you're in on it.
Okay. Now, wait a minute. Is it only Christian pastors are allowed in Australia, and only Christian ones are allowed?
No, as I said, the bill is written to get past the critics. It's written to say anybody can apply. But what happens when the rubber hits the road? 97% of the pastors, of the counselors in Australia ended up being Christian when the population was 65% Christian. That's not by accident. It's not because the Muslims didn't apply. It's the bureaucracy takes care of a lot of the, they just didn't qualify, or they just weren't interested, right?
Bureaucracy, and maybe you're right. But you're saying, wait a minute, they're screening out non-Christians. That's a different claim. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying there's two facts. One, they made the argument that this is okay because the legislation was non-denominational. And fact two is, in the end, what they said would happen, which we would have multi-faith representation across the schools, did not happen. We only had Christian representation. You can be the judge as to why that happens, but I think if you're going to ask anybody to believe that that was just, a statistical anomaly that we see elsewhere around the world, I think people are not going to buy that.
What's stopping the atheists from going there and speaking to the kids and counseling?
They're not.
Well, then
I'm not stopped.
What you're saying.
I'm saying none of us should be going in and talking about religion to public school students. That has nothing to do with the government.
When did atheists get
what's your take?
chaplains?
We've been going back and forth. I'm sorry. What's your take, Justin?
No, I'm loving the conversation. This is in your wheelhouse, and I love it. But I'm confused about why you would think atheists are going to go into schools and teach kids about atheism.
Yeah, I would never presume to go into a public school and tell kids you shouldn't believe that a God exists. I would never in my wildest dreams think that that was appropriate, morally okay, on many levels, governmental wise or parent wise, right? But Christians are doing it to students with the power of the government.
We leave the brainwashing to the religious cults. We don't do that.
I don't. Well, I mean, you guys can go and say be skeptical. Wouldn't that be a nice counterbalance if you went in there? If you got time for this, don't you have
They
time
don't
for
need
the kids?
that.
No, the government shouldn't be involved in it. Sorry, go ahead, Justin. I need to calm down.
You don't need an atheist specifically to teach students to analyze things properly. Like a good foundation in science and a good foundation in logic, which should be part of the curriculum, will already take care of that. You don't need representatives from atheismo coming into the schools to do that.
Atheismo, I like that.
Apparently you do. If you're outnumbered 97% to 3, you guys better get in there. I mean,
okay. Now I'm not taking you seriously, Mike. I'm not taking. I don't think we can take Mike seriously after that. Really?
Yeah, I don't. Mike, why do you think our goal is to make everybody an atheist?
I think your goal.
Like you have so many assumptions about our worldview. You don't even know our worldview.
I was asking you about it. I was like, why do you care about Christian nationalists? And then
because I don't want the government. I don't want the government giving tax breaks to only Christians. I don't want the government telling my child that they're going to go to hell if they don't accept Jesus. I don't know why this is so hard.
That's not what you said before. You never talked
about
that.
That is exactly what I said. I'm just giving you actual examples.
Your actual examples were writing laws for Christians and having a theocracy. I don't want.
What do you think taxes? What do you think tax breaks come from?
Government.
Those are laws. Come on now, Mike. Come on. Tax breaks for Christians is a legislative event, right? Allowing people to teach that Jesus is true comes from the law, right? The legal system has to allow it, especially because we've tried for 200 and whatever years to prevent it. So to overcome that, it takes a very concerted effort to do so. And it's all out in the open. It's all out in the open. You can go read Project 2025. You can go read all of the conservative Christian movements that have been trying to do this non-stop. And it is finally a point where they have a foothold and we need to sit up like prairie dogs and pay attention. That's my point. If you honestly agree with me that the government should not be teaching, let's start with this. Do you agree that the government should be neutral as far as religion goes? It shouldn't opine as to the truth of a religion. It shouldn't favor one religious group over another. Do you agree with that?
I think we covered that with the First Amendment, separation of church and state. Yeah, I believe in that. They shouldn't be pro for it and advocating a certain religion, and they shouldn't be holding you back either. So yes.
Right. Now, what does holding back look like? Does saying, hey, we're not going to have government employees teaching children that the Bible is true. If we say that's the rule, government employees cannot on the clock as part of a classroom class teach that the Bible is true. Is that separation of church and state that's proper, or is that somehow holding Christianity back?
I think you got a point there. I think teaching that it's true, now they've crossed the line. I would agree with that.
Okay, that's what I'm against. I think, Justin, you're against it too, I think?
Yeah, I'm against it too.
Yeah. I'm not pro indoctrination for the kids. I think
any religion is not just Christian, right?
Yeah.
I think you wouldn't want a Muslim going in and doing it, right, Justin?
No.
Would you want an atheist going in and doing it?
No. This is something for your home. This is something that if your parents don't have the balls to teach you their religion, then that's on them. But I think when it comes to like matters of faith and things like that, that's your parents' job. It's not the job of the schools to try to create religious adherence.
Holy cow! I agree with you guys.
Listen,
I got a last
I'm all
chaser,
for
and you
freedom
don't
of
have to answer it.
religion, by the way. Just to be clear, Mike, I'm all for, I don't want to stop anyone from having the freedom of religion, but I do want to not have it forced on people, especially not our kids. And I want people to be able to learn to think critically. That's what I want.
Yeah, I got two reasons that I don't want it forced on. First of all, if we turn into a theistic government, they're going to screw it up and they're going to teach garbage and get off course like immediately in 20 years or less.
Yes.
And then the other one is it opens the door to every other religion. I'm not a big fan of Islam. I don't like how they treat everybody. So.
And those are fair. I will quote Thomas Jefferson. I referenced this in a rant earlier, but pre-Constitution, so after Declaration of Independence, pre-Constitution, Virginia is considering a bill, a law, that would say, hey, we're going to take some money and hire teachers of the Christian faith to go teach Christianity in public schools in the colony of Virginia. Jefferson, Madison, and others rose up against it, wrote these, what's called a protest and demonstrance against the bill. And the bill was suspended. The consideration of the bill was suspended for a year while they published their papers and argued it. And Jefferson introduced the bill I referenced, which is a bill for religious freedom. And the bill says basically, you can't spend money, like the government can't tax people to then take that money and use it to teach the truth of a religious faith, whatever religious faith that would be. And he made a very important point that I think will resonate with you, Mike. He said, even if the government, and I'm quoting him very loosely here, using some made up fancy language, even if the government would take the monies out of my pocket to give them to a preacher of my own faith, that government is depriving me of giving the money to that preacher whose particularities I might agree with. And what he meant by that was, if I'm a Protestant and you're teaching Protestantism and you're taxing me to pay for that, that's still tyranny. He used the word tyranny when he described that, because he's pointing out, you're depriving me of my ability to choose the preacher down at the preacher level that I might agree with on any particularity. And this is why when Texas introduced a chaplain bill, the very first lawsuit that was filed, the plaintiff was a preacher, a Christian preacher in Texas. This is the point. It's not just when you're in the in-group that you have to worry. It's okay, we make Christianity the official religion, and all of a sudden they adopt the Catholic Bible, and everybody disagrees with that. In fact, that actually happened in Louisiana. They voted to make the Holy Bible, or they passed a bill, or were considering a bill, to make the Bible the official book, the official crap they come up with states, the official book of Louisiana, and that measure ended up collapsing because nobody could agree on which version of the Bible should be the official version. And that's where separation of church and state comes into play, not as between atheist and religious people, not as between Muslim and Christian, but from this preacher to that preacher. Jefferson says, even making that difference, the government distinguishing that or favoring that is tyranny. And that would be the point of why we don't want the first toe over the line towards Christian nationalism.
Except if it's volunteer, then you're on it's a toe. But I don't know. I'm not going to defend that. I do agree with keeping the government and the any religion separate. And that Project 2025 and Trump and all, I think you'd be lucky to find. 2025. I thought that was dead. That was like a propaganda thing. Trump's going to go.
I can't use names, but a certain highest level official mentioned it last week and called it great after denying that he knew anything about it during the election. Search the news.
Yeah, but nobody's doing anything. They've had
what?
No. There's a website dedicated to tracking every policy proposal in that document. They're currently 48% complete with all of the proposals in the document.
Did you know that website?
Google Project 2025 Tracker, I think is I don't remember the exact name, but I'll give you a
very good.
I'll give you a high press example. Okay. My area of practice in the law when I practiced law was FDA regulatory law, right? Project 2025 talks about FDA, Health and Human Services, all of those people, and says, all agencies basically, and says, what we need to do is get rid of the experts and install loyalists who will try to push for these particular agendas. And they are very smart in Project 2025. They do not mention the word Christian except for 2 or 3 times. They talk in sort of abstract language, but when you look at the organization that created Project 2025,
that was dumb.
Well, the Heritage Foundation came from a group of conservative Christians who were pissed off at Nixon because he wasn't conservative and Christian enough. So that's the people that wrote Project 2025. And now when you look at what they've done is they have gotten rid of expertise at every level. They have fired many people I've known who work at the FDA who know what they're doing, and they've installed morons who are loyalists. This is what you do when you want to bring down the guardrails of a government. And I used to respect the FDA. I argued against them. My clients were people who would have problems with the FDA. They were importers of goods that thought they were being too strict or whatever. But I respected them immensely. Every single one of them were experts, had high-level degrees, and their chief concern above all else was the health and safety of the drugs, medicine, cosmetics, medical devices of not only the U.S., but the world, because they knew the heavy burden they bore, that many countries piggyback off of FDA regulations because they don't have a sophisticated science program in their country. So they just say, we'll do whatever the FDA does. And that is being destroyed as not a goal of Christian nationalism, but as a goal to weaken the guardrails and expertise in the government itself. And if you look everywhere throughout the government, that is what's going on. And meanwhile, they are enacting regulations and policies, executive orders that are pushing religion into government. And the Supreme Court, it was specifically created by McConnell to facilitate that. And they've already struck down the Lemon Rule, which was used for decades to separate church and state. This Supreme Court has done away with that. And now they're using basically made up bullshit that nobody can agree upon what they actually mean when they write about it. So Project 2025 is very real. Please do go research it. It's one of its many goals is towards Christian nationalism, but its main goal is weaken expertise in government and install loyalists who will look the other way when we try to do the other stuff.
Hey, question for you. Do you think that the FDA is like impervious to corruption, like by Pfizer or anybody else? You think no?
Not at all.
No to money, like all of them.
Well,
no, I don't think so.
Can
I talk to you a little bit about that first? I actually, not to say too much about my past life as an engineer, but I actually worked with the pharmaceutical companies that have to go through FDA approval. I personally have multiple machines that I've designed have to go through FDA approval. And it's a very robust process. I'm not saying that somebody couldn't get paid off or corrupted, but it's a very robust process. The amount of checks that are in balance aren't just because the government wants checks and balances. It's because the insurance companies that have to cover the liabilities for the manufacturers need the checks and balances too. So there's a whole supporting cast outside of the FDA with checks and balances and procedures in place that one rogue FDA employee is not likely going to poo-poo the whole process. In fact, there was a deadline we missed for a project way back in like 2016. We just missed a deadline. We couldn't get it on time. We had to wait another 2 years to get FDA approval because that was just how the process worked. They weren't going to bend for us. It didn't matter how much money we had.
Well, I mean, I've got an experience with that too. A friend of mine, it took him over a decade to get something approved, FDA and all that. So, yeah, I mean, there's that.
It's hard.
I readily accept that government capture, agency capture exists in every agency at every level, just same way that insurance fraud happens at all insurance companies, and the same way that welfare fraud happens in all welfare systems, and food aid fraud happens in all systems. That's just a given. What you do is you do the calculation calculus, right? You optimize the curve of how much effort you're going to put in to trap and catch the bad stuff without spending too much, right? We don't want to spend, it costs 1,000,000% more to catch the 98th or 99th percent of fraud. And it just at some point isn't worth it. And I recognize that. I'm not an idealist, but the FDA works. The world follows the FDA. Our engineers work. The engineering system works. Our buildings don't fall down like they do elsewhere. Our roads work. Our electrical grid works. Is it perfect? No, but it not being perfect isn't a reason to say we shouldn't have experts. It's always open to capture.
Hey,
That's
I'm not
human
backing-
nature. You put enough internal affairs resources into trying to capture most of it, and you get on with your life.
All right. Hey, I got a last thing, but we won't talk about it probably. Out in Europe, UK, this is for you, Cross-Examine. This a couple of months ago, we talked about how they're clamping down on free speech. You said you might look into it. Did you have a chance to look into that at all?
I have not. I have not had time. I don't recall. To be honest, I don't recall that conversation. So maybe you could remind me.
Oh, it was a throwaway comment, but I was like, oh man, I understand you can't pray next to an abortion clinic. It's
that's not true. That's not true. That was debunked. That story was debunked. What happens, just like in the US, what happens is something happens, right? And the headline will be person arrested for praying, right? Or person arrested for being an atheist, whatever. Like that's the headline that goes everywhere. And then you dig into the details and you realize, oh, it wasn't for praying. It was for trespassing. Or they were violent or something like that. And in this particular case where I want to say London, I don't remember, in England, somebody was arrested and the headline from the conservative press was person arrested for praying. But when you dig into it, if I recall correctly, it was trespassing or violence. They'd been warned before. It wasn't for praying. It was for what they were doing while praying. So always be skeptical of headlines on either end of the spectrum, because what sells? Blood, death, and sex. That's what sells. So they're not going to be honest in their headlines at all on any side of the spectrum.
Well, it's new now. They're sending out clips of guys preaching, and if they say something about the Bible or anti-Islamic, then they're saying you're causing distress, and they're getting warnings. And after the warning, then they come in and they, take you down, and they're
go ahead and create a website. Post all of that stuff, make the world know about it. I think in the process of doing that, I'm going to be your first supporter if that's going on. Really, legitimately, that's what's going on. But I think in the process of doing that and diving into that content, rather, I don't depend on TikToks and memes. Go look at the studies, go pull up the court documents, look at the records of the police file, see what actually happened. And I'd be willing to bet a decent amount of money that what's going on is you may have one or two cases of overzealous cops, right? You see it all the time in the United States. Cops come up and arrest people on the street for taking pictures in public, and that's totally legal, but they arrest them, and then that county gets sued and they lose the lawsuit because it's constitutional. So there's going to be some percentage of that anywhere you give anybody a badge for any reason. But in the process of investigating that and creating your website of England is now arresting people for praying, I would be willing to bet that you will find that they're demonstrating without a license, like anybody. If they're talking about anti-nuclear preaching, it has nothing to do with the content of their speech and has to do with the time, manner, place of their behavior. I'd be willing to bet, but
but it doesn't look like that. Thank you.
I know it doesn't. I know it doesn't. Isn't that fascinating how the information you're getting doesn't look like that, but the information I get looks different? We are both getting information from the algorithm. I'm being fed facts that are different than you are being fed facts. And I'm not saying my facts are right. I'm saying go look at the actual documentation and read up on that before you accept whatever the algorithm's feeding you. Because what I've learned over the last 4 or 5 years is I used to assume that you and I, or somebody who's a pro-MAGA guy, whatever, we were seeing the same facts and coming to different conclusions. I no longer believe that. I believe that through the algorithm and now upcoming AI slop, you and I are seeing different facts. And that explains why we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. So the way I fight that is I go look at original documents, go look at the actual documents. Don't rely on a TikTok video. Don't rely on a meme. Don't rely on a video that somebody posted on Facebook. You can learn very easily how to go find the court documents, find neutral reporting, and go and look at what actually happens in the long run, because the story you get from the witnesses on the street on day one are going to be very different from what the person confesses to, admits to, testifies to when they actually are under oath. So I have tried to cut myself off from the algorithm. I suggest you do too. Go to the original documents. And then if you've got something, the world, including us, the atheist community of Austin, supports the separation of church and state. We would be utterly against that behavior. However, I suspect we will find what we usually find, which is a few crazy cops and a bunch of people getting arrested for behavior, not for the content of their speech. But we do have to go on.
I hope you're right.
Justin, this has sort of been my call. I'm so sorry about that. Do you have anything to add before Mike drops off?
I loved it. It was like watching a master chef create his favorite recipe.
And Mike's been great. Mike, you're a great interlocutor. I really appreciate your questions. I do really think that you make some good arguments and observations. And I do want to hear back from you.
Yeah. Hey, what did you call me? Interlocutor? We were doing something.
Interlocutor. It's the person you're sort of conversing with or debating.
I know. That's a good word. I like it.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. We really appreciate it.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your lies.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.